Chapter 2202. Seeing Chu Luiyue staring at the Xian formation and not moving for a long time, the surrounding crowd couldn't help but gradually become restless. What is she looking at? I don't know, maybe she hasn't recovered yet after suddenly seeing a great Xian King Master level Xian formation. A Xian formation of this level isn't that easy to comprehend, right? Just as the crowd was discussing animatedly, Chu Luiyue finally came back to her senses. She raised her hands lightly, and several streaks of light flew out. In terms of quantity, it was clearly much more than before. This also confirmed the crowd's previous guess, she was indeed a great Xian King Master. The silver streaks of light intertwined, and very quickly formed the outline of a circular Xian formation in front of her. Immediately after, a series of complicated patterns also gradually outlined. In less than 15 minutes, that Xian formation was completely displayed. Chu Luiyue waved her wrist lightly, and that Xian formation silently fell, completely overlapping with the Xian formation sealed under the black jade. Bang! A silver spark that was much larger than before flew up, and slowly bloomed above her head. The crowd quieted down, and the originally somewhat noisy voices instantly dissipated. The way they looked at Chu Luiyue changed again. It can't be, right? How is she so fast? That's the Nether Heart formation. Although it's considered one of the simpler ones among great Xian King Master's Xian formations, but it's still a level higher than those just now. Did she see it clearly? She displayed it in the blink of an eye. I've already broken through to great Xian King Master for several years, but I'm not as fast as her. What kind of person has come? Most importantly, she doesn't even have a bloodline totem, and is already so heaven-defying. I really don't dare to imagine what kind of existence she would be if she had one. Fortunately, there are no ifs in this world. Otherwise, with just this move, she would have already crushed countless people, right? Right at this time, a cheerful voice sounded. Oh. It's only been a few days, and the little girl is already here. Chu Luiyue turned her head to look, and curled her lips into a smile. Senior Xiao Ran, why are you here too? Xiao Ran laughed as he looked at Chu Luiyue with a curious and admiring gaze. I was bored by myself, so I decided to come out for a walk. I didn't expect to see you activating the Nether Heart formation as soon as I arrived. Your speed is indeed fast enough. The levels of the Xian formations in front of him were not high, so it was not difficult to use them. However, this Nether Heart formation was a genuine Grand Xian King Master level formation, yet she was actually able to comprehend it so smoothly and easily. Chu Luiyue pursed his lips and smiled. It's actually a coincidence. I've seen this Nether Heart formation before. Oh. I see. Xiao Ran nodded in understanding, and the crowd heaved a sigh of relief when they heard this. It turned out that he had seen her before. If that was the case, it wasn't hard to explain why she was so fast. If it was really the same as before, where one could comprehend it with a single glance, then no one would be allowed to live. Then continue. Continue. Xiao Ran chuckled. When he first heard that Chu Luiyue was a Grand Xian King Master, although he was surprised, he didn't think too much about it. After all, Grand Xian King Masters were not rare in the illusory God Palace. However, only now did he realize that Chu Luiyue's strength in this aspect seemed to be even more outstanding than many Grand Xian King Masters. At the very least, he had never seen anyone who could comprehend all the Xian formations of Grand Xian King Masters in a short 4 days. Mu Yafing couldn't do it either. Chu Luiyue nodded and continued forward. The Star Road was very lively, but the courtyard where Chu Luiyue and the others were in was very quiet. After little Hachi got up from the bed, she went to Chu Luiyue's room. However, it was empty. There was no one in the room. Looking at the empty room, she stretched lazily and turned to walk back. She happened to see Tsin Yi, who had just come out from next door. Little Hachi asked. Big brother, master isn't back yet. Tsuni nodded. It's already been a few days, Little Hachi mumbled. Then, her eyes lit up as she said excitedly. If that's the case, doesn't that mean that master is still walking on the Star Road? Big brother, why don't we go take a look together? Tsunyi's expression was indifferent. Not going. Why not? Little Hachi was instantly disappointed. She glanced in the direction of the Star Road. I see that there are quite a lot of people there. They must have been stunned by master. Let's go join in the fun. Tsunyi looked up and quietly glanced at her. What's there to see about a Grand Xian King Master's Xian formation? Little Hachi pursed her lips. Big brother, you can't not let others take a look just because you look down on a Grand Xian King Master's Xian formation, right? You're abnormally strong in this aspect, but I'm different from you. You're not a Xian master, so there's no comparison. Tsunyi reminded, if you have the time, why don't you think about the things I asked you to refine last time? Have you finished them all? Little Hachi put her hands on her hips, looking arrogant. Of course I've finished refining them all. Who was she looking down on? That's good. Tsunyi's expression was indifferent. Double it. Little Hachi, big brother, Little Hachi has been cooped up here for several days. Why don't we let her out for a walk? Hua Shuang, who heard their conversation, poked her head out of the room. Why don't I bring her to Herb Mountain for a stroll? When Little Hachi heard this, she instantly perked up. Herb Mountain. Sure. As expected, second brother is the best to me. Tsunyi glanced at Hua Shuang and paused for a moment before finally nodding. Double it. Little Hachi's mouth twitched. She just knew that big brother wouldn't relent so easily. Double it is. Second brother, let's go. I reckon that when we return, we can still go to the Star Passage to cheer for master. The two quickly left, heading straight in the direction of Herb Mountain. Tsunyi stared at their backs for a while before turning around. However, he didn't return to his room. Instead, he went to the side. When he entered the room, it was completely silent. Walking around the screen, he saw Chang Wanzhou sitting in a chair with his head slightly lowered. His soft golden hair fell down, covering his eyes and brows. His lips, which were always like roses in the past, were now slightly pale. One of his hands was tightly gripping the armrest of the chair, and his body was trembling slightly as if he was experiencing some kind of pain. Upon closer inspection, one could see that his palm was covered in a thin layer of frost. Tsunyi walked in front of him and turned his wrist over. He separated a bit of force and poured it into his yuan meridian. After a while, the cold aura on Chang Wanzhou's body quietly dissipated. He exhaled. Thank you. Tsunyi shook his head and looked at the letter at his waist. The illusion character inside was rich and dazzling, as if something was about to penetrate it. He reached out and brushed his hand over the letter. After a while, the inexplicable aura disappeared by more than half, and the character also faded a lot. This is fine. Chapter 2203. To comprehend a Grand Xian King Master-level profound formation, she obviously had to spend more energy and time than before. Chu Liuyue's speed had obviously slowed down. Of course, this was only what she thought. In the eyes of the surrounding people, her current speed could already be called abnormal. The way they looked at her changed from the initial disdain and contempt to a complicated look. The illusory god palace indeed hadn't had such an outstanding genius for a long time. However, she didn't have a bloodline totem. This also indicated that no matter how outstanding her performance was, the final outcome was already decided. On one hand, everyone envied her talent, but on the other hand, they felt pity for her bloodline. Of course, the majority of them were thankful for this. However, Chu Luiyue didn't care about what they thought. She only had one thought now, to complete the star path and enter the illusory god palace. Bang! A profound formation quickly appeared in front of her, and a silver spark slowly bloomed above her head. Then, she continued to take a step forward. Xiaoran watched from the side for a while, and finally couldn't help but rub his chin and ask, "Little girl, how did you comprehend that wind-lightning profound formation so quickly?" Chu Luiyue didn't even turn her head. Her eyes were still staring at the profound formation under her feet. "Because I've seen it before." The corner of Xiaoran's mouth twitched. "You've already said this many times." Although these profound formations were of the same level, there was still quite a bit of difference between them. Some were simple, while others were very complicated. The same Grand Xian King Master could comprehend two completely different profound formations, and the time it would take would be very different because of this. Take that wind-lightning profound formation for example. It was definitely the most complicated profound formation of the same level. However, Chu Luiyue only looked at it for a short while before successfully copying it and displaying it. One had to know that even he had used half a month's time to completely comprehend it. Many people envied him because of this. However, compared to Chu Luiyue right now, even if she said she had seen it before, Xiaoran still couldn't help but feel defeated. "When I asked you before, you said you've seen it before, and now you say you've seen it before. What a coincidence, you've seen all these profound formations before." How old was she? Even if he had started studying profound formations in his mother's womb, it was impossible for him to have such a wide range of knowledge, right? Many of the Xian formations on the star passage could only be found here. Chu Luiyue paused for a moment, as if he was weighing his words. Actually, the profound formations of great Xian King Masters that I have comprehended aren't that many, but there are indeed quite a few that have clashed with the ones here. I guess. It's really a coincidence, right? She didn't believe it herself. However, she still spoke in a serious manner, and her face was pure and sincere. "You might not know this, but I've always had good luck." Xiaoran, everyone was speechless. No matter how good his luck was, it shouldn't be this good, right? Xiaoran looked at her suspiciously, but he couldn't see anything from her face, so he could only give up. Meanwhile, little Hachi and Hua Shuangshuang went straight to the Herb Mountain. The so-called Herb Mountain was actually a large stretch of undulating mountain ranges. Towering mountains and precipitous ridges, strange peaks stood in great numbers. Before they arrived, they could already smell the rich medicinal fragrance in the air. Little Hachi's eyes instantly lit up. "Second brother, there's really a lot of good stuff here." Hua Shuangshuang looked at her excited face and laughed. "Are you happy now?" Little Hachi raised her eyebrows and snorted. "Big brother is too old-fashioned. Didn't we just come out for a walk? What's there to worry about? I've been out there alone for the past few years, and I've been living well. Nothing has happened to me. Big brother is doing this for your own good." I should have called little 13 over. This way, big brother's energy can be diverted. Hua Shuangshuang coughed. Little 13 has always been obedient and sensible. Big brother has never put in much effort for him. However, little Hachi, on the other hand, had a jumpy personality and was heartless. They had cleaned up a lot of her messes behind her. Little Hachi's red lips curled, but she didn't refute. Soul sky fruit. She casually glanced around and suddenly saw a large patch of soul sky fruits growing on a mountain peak not far away. Soul sky fruits were extremely precious and rare. Even in Peach Blossom Cove and Sanson Small Space, there were only a dozen or so of them growing. Little Hachi had asked Sanson for some earlier, but Sanson was unwilling to give them to her. However, at a rough glance, there were at least 100 of them here. "Just nice, I'm in urgent need of these things recently. It's really easy to get them." Little Hachi's figure flashed, and she went straight for the mountain. Hua Shuang followed closely behind. The soul sky fruit's stem was very long. It could reach a person's waist, and was about the thickness of a thumb. Layers of palm-sized leaves grew on the rhizome, and a longan-sized red berry grew at the top. This was the soul sky fruit. A sweet fragrance wafted through the air. Little Hachi came closer. Seeing that the soul sky fruit was growing just right, her eyes were filled with joy. She reached out and was about to pluck it when she suddenly heard a voice from the side. "Stop!" Little Hachi paused and looked in the direction of the voice. A woman in a white dress was rushing towards them at high speed. She didn't seem to move at all, but she was already in front of Little Hachi in a few flashes. This woman looked to be about 20 years old. Her appearance was pure and beautiful, and her elegant white dress made her look even more elegant. She stood there like a magnolia. She glanced at Little Hachi, and a hint of displeasure flashed across her eyes. She said, "You can't pluck this soul sky fruit." Little Hachi was stunned. Why? Didn't the seventh divine envoy say that the things on this herb mountain can be used at will? For most people, that's indeed the case. But, you're an exception. The woman lifted her chin, and her eyes swept past the tongue on Little Hachi's waist. People without a bloodline totem are not allowed to use the natural treasures on this herb mountain. Little Hachi's beautiful eyes widened. There was actually such a rule. Wasn't this too much of a bully? Why didn't the seventh divine envoy say so earlier? Isn't this a lie? Really, you made me waste my feelings. Little Hachi already had a problem with Jin Yunlai. Now that she heard this, she was even more furious. Impudent. The woman in the white dress's face instantly turned cold. The divine envoys were respected in the illusory god palace. No one dared to disrespect them like this. This woman was truly audacious. Little Hachi. Hua Shuang also rushed over at this time. She pulled Little Hachi and gave her a look. Then, she stepped forward and politely cupped her hands. "Miss, I'm really sorry." I'm not a miss." The woman raised her chin, looking proud and arrogant. "I'm the eighth divine envoy, Xu Jing." Chapter 2204. Hua Shuang was stunned. Only now did she understand where the other party's arrogance came from. The seventh divine emissary Jin Yunlai was an arrogant person, and this one was even more so. He smiled and said, "The eighth divine emissary. So it's the eighth divine emissary. Actually, we didn't mean to offend you. It's just that we're new here and don't know many of the rules. If we've offended you, please forgive us." He was tall and handsome to begin with, and his current attitude was very sincere, which made him seem more likable. Xu Jing's expression softened a little, and he said calmly, "The more new you are, the more you don't know, and the more you have to be respectful. This is the illusory god palace, not some random place. You don't have a bloodline totem, so you have to be more careful." The eighth divine emissary is right. Hua Shuang immediately agreed. Xu Jing continued, "If you want to use the natural treasures here, it's not completely impossible. A Grand Doctor level pill can be exchanged for one chance." Hua Shuang and Little Hachi's expressions changed slightly. This level of pill was extremely rare. Even Little Hachi didn't have it. And even if she did, this exchange wasn't worth it. Little Hachi was so angry that she laughed. Her red lips curled into a perfect arc, and her beautiful eyes sparkled. "Thank you for your good intentions, but I think we should forget about it. With this little time, I can do anything else. Why do I have to do such a thankless thing? Second brother, let's go. It's the same if we go back and get it from Sansan." Xu Jing only thought that she was stubborn, and said disapprovingly, "If you don't have the ability, then don't force yourself. This herb mountain doesn't lack people like you. Especially when they didn't even have a bloodline totem. Lord Divine Emissary, you don't have to worry about this. Little 8 lowered his eyes to admire the nail polish that he had meticulously applied as he said lazily. Anyway, we'll leave after staying here for a while. We'll just treat this as a vacation. But Lord Divine Emissary, you should pay more attention to rest and not get angry. Our master said that women get old quickly if they get angry. You. Shu Jing was furious. Lil 8 was still smiling. With a twist of his waist, he pulled Hua Shuang and left in a carefree manner. The colorful and gorgeous skirt swayed in the wind, and the broken jade beads strung on the colorful string around her wrists and ankles made crisp sounds. Her slender and fair waist was faintly discernible as she walked. It was especially eye-catching and seductive. Many of the surrounding onlookers originally wanted to see a joke, but at this moment, they were all stunned. A natural beauty like little Hachi could make countless people go crazy with just a look or a curl of her finger. There was an indescribable enchanting aura on her body, like a fatal temptation, but also like a strong and vivid painting, easily entering one's eyes and engraving it into one's mind, unable to be erased. Suddenly, a young man flew over and stopped little Hachi and Hua Shuang. The way he looked at little 8 was filled with undisguised eagerness. Miss, I am Liang He. May I know your name? Little Hachi narrowed her eyes and glanced at him. What are you doing? Her voice had always been soft and delicate, but at this moment, it carried a bit of laziness. When Hua Shuang heard it, she knew that she was suppressing her anger. Unfortunately, the man opposite her didn't know and thought that the girl was acting coquettishly. Instantly, half of his body went limp. He hurriedly said, Mississippi, don't misunderstand. I don't have any other intentions. I just want to be friends with you. I just heard that you want the soul sky fruit. I just happen to have a few extra here. How about I give them to you? These words sounded too fake. No one would complain about having too many soul sky fruits. He was clearly trying to please little Hachi. Little Hachi yawned. She had seen too many of these kinds of tricks and was really bored. If she was in a good mood, she might be happy to say a few more words to him. But now, she was in a very bad mood and almost couldn't suppress her anger. So she couldn't be bothered to talk to him. No need. I'm not interested. With that, she lifted her feet and left. Liang He was instantly anxious. Then. Miss, you really don't want the soul sky fruit. Little Hachi didn't even turn her head. She waved her hand lazily and dismissed him with one sentence. It won't be too late to find me after you bring those soul sky fruits over. Liang He's face stiffened. Little Hachi and Hua Shuang had already left. Shu Jing saw this scene and frowned slightly. In his heart, he was even more disgusted with little Hachi. What else can this kind of woman do other than seduce men? She's just a mere high god without a bloodline totem. How can she be so arrogant? The seventh oracle actually let this kind of person in. Her figure flashed and disappeared on the spot. Little Hachi, aren't we going to the Star Road to see Master? Are you planning to go back? Hua Shuang followed beside little Hachi. Seeing her change direction, she couldn't help but ask. Little Hachi snorted softly. Why are we going there now? To make things difficult for Master. If Master knew that they were scornfully bullied just now, he wouldn't be in a good mood. It was better to let Master focus on his own matters first. If they went there now, it wouldn't be to cheer them on, but to be discouraged. Hua Shuang sighed. Don't take it to heart. From the moment you stepped into the illusory god palace, you should have expected this situation, right? Jin Yunlai's attitude at the heavenly gate had already explained everything. Little Hachi kicked a stone in front of her away and wrinkled her nose. I just feel disgusted. That Shu Jing is the 8th oracle. I'm Little Hachi. Aren't you deliberately disgusting me? Hua Shuang laughed. Little Hachi's anger was always different from theirs. That's fine. You're prettier than her. Really? Little Hachi's expression finally improved after hearing this. She raised her eyebrows and glanced at him. Hua Shuang suppressed her laughter. Wasn't it very obvious just now? Otherwise, Liang He wouldn't have taken the initiative to come over. After all, Shu Jing was still around at that time. Little Hachi's lips curled up slightly. That's right. Master is the most beautiful person in the world. I'm the same as Master. The two quickly returned to their residence and saw Tsinyi sitting on a stone bench in the courtyard. There was a yellowed piece of paper in front of him with a few stones on it. It looked like he was studying some kind of mechanism. When he heard their footsteps, he looked up, but there was no surprise on his face. Big brother, I was bullied today. When Little Eighth returned, he poured out his grievances and told Tsinyi about what had happened in an aggrieved manner. Finally, he concluded, these people are too much. Tsinyi's expression didn't change. When she finally finished, he said mildly, it's just a small matter. Isn't it just a medicinal pill for a great physician? It's not like you can't refine it. Chapter 2205. Little Hachi froze. Her long eyelashes fluttered as she quickly glanced at Tsinyi. Tsinyi dropped the last stone in his hand with a calm expression. Little Hachi instantly exhaled and slumped onto the stone table. Big brother, can't you give me some privacy? She hadn't even said anything. Big brother would know everything. I was still thinking of giving Master a surprise. She grumbled unhappily. Tsinyi glanced at her and asked. Can this be considered a surprise? Then the threshold for this surprise was too low. Little Hachi was speechless. This person was too perverted. Tsinyi seemed to have heard her thoughts and asked calmly, what did you say? Little Mina immediately sat up straight and gave him 2 thumbs up with a look of admiration. I said that Big Brother's plans are flawless. He can predict things like a god. He's really amazing. Little Hachi was really impressed. Hua Shuang glanced at Little Hachi and was a little surprised. Little Hachi, I haven't seen you in a few years, but your bootlicking skills have improved. Little Hachi was speechless. Second brother, you flatter me. Your sharp-tongued ability is also better than before. Actually, Hua Shuang wasn't like this at first. Ever since she started raising animals and vegetables with Shifang, she was infected by him. After so many years, she didn't get any better. It's too much of a loss to exchange medicine for those things. I would only agree if there was a hole in my brain. Little Hachi snorted. Even if she could refine it, she wouldn't be willing to do so. Tsinyi nodded. Although Herb Mountain is big, there are only so many things. You have enough for now. It's fine if you don't go. Little Hachi looked at him strangely. Big brother, how do you know all this? You've been to Herb Mountain. Tsinyi paused and put away the items on the table before saying calmly, he calmly said, with your standard, you can only refine these things. As for more, do you need it now? Little Hachi raised her eyebrows in dissatisfaction. That's not necessarily true. Then we'll talk about it when you can do it. After saying that, Tsinyi got up and left. Little Hachi stuck out her tongue at his back. In the blink of an eye, it was the second day. On the star passage, Chu Luiyue looked at the profound formation beneath his feet and exhaled softly. Then, she lifted her foot and left the star passage. When the crowd saw this, there was an uproar. Was he finally unable to persevere and was about to give up? Yo, why aren't you watching anymore? Xiao Ran asked curiously. Chu Lue smiled. Nothing, I just want to rest. Everyone secretly exchanged glances. Even though he put it nicely, it was probably because he was unable to comprehend it and was trying to find a way out for himself. But this was normal. People who tried to walk the star path often did so there was nothing to say. Moreover, Chu Lue had comprehended so many profound formations and walked so far in such a short period of time. That's fine. You haven't been back for a few days, right? Change your brain and come back to fight again. Xiao Ran was also very open-minded as he said with a smile. Chu Lue nodded and thanked him before heading back to her residence. After she left, the crowd of onlookers gradually dispersed. Chu Lue quickly returned to her courtyard. Master, you're back. Little Hachi was resting on a rattan chair in the courtyard and immediately wanted to get up when she saw her. Just rest. I'll go back and calm down first. Chu Lue said. Little Hachi blinked and lay back down. Oh, okay. Then rest well, master. Chu Lue returned to her room, locked the door, and took a deep breath. After a long while, she gritted her teeth and said word by word, those are actually the profound formations of a great mystic king master. When she saw them back then, Debeo clearly said that they were profound formations of a mystic king master. Chapter 2206. Chu Lue felt that he had been deeply deceived. Back then in the Scarlet Moon Desert, how much effort had she put in to comprehend those incomparably complicated profound formations? There were even a few times when he was caught by Debao and scolded because he really couldn't remember. At that time, she only thought that her talent was limited, and she was worried that she would let down Debeo's expectations. She felt guilty for a long time. In the end, he had taken something that was far beyond her realm and forced her to cultivate. Unfortunately, she was too innocent at that time. Although she felt that those things were very difficult, she never doubted Debao. Needless to say, Lan Xiao and Diwu Zhangzi definitely knew about it too. They could be considered half an accomplice. Chu Lue ground his teeth. When I find them, I'll make them pay for this. This means that you've seen all those Xian formations before. Dumpling's soft voice sounded in his heart. Chu Lue face-bombed. Not really. But, however, the closer she got to the illusory god palace, the more profound formations she saw. At first, she didn't feel that something was wrong, but later on, when she saw those profound formations that Debeo called Mystic King Tier profound formations appearing one after another in the area of the Great Mystic King Tier profound formations, and there were quite a few of them, she knew that there was something fishy going on. Sensing her thoughts, Dumpling asked excitedly, if that's the case, doesn't that mean that you will be able to comprehend all the profound formations on the Star Passage in no time? That's great. Chu Lue pursed her lips slightly. That's why I came back. Previously, it could still be explained as her talent and luck. However, if this continued, everyone would be certain that there was something wrong with her. Although she urgently wanted to enter the illusory god palace and find Debeo and the others, she was still worried. If he didn't handle the suspicions and questions of the people around him well, it was very likely that it would cause unknown effects. She hadn't been in the illusory god palace for long and hadn't figured out anything yet. It wasn't wise for her to advance rashly. Let's wait and see how the illusory god palace reacts before making our next move. Chu Lue said firmly. Originally, she was worried about Debao and the others. All she wanted to do was to enter the palace of the illusory god through the star path. But now, after knowing that she had seen most of the profound formations on the Star Passage, she was no longer that anxious. Dumpling was confused. Then Dumpling will listen to you. Chu Lue walked over and sat down. He closed his eyes and rested. For the past few days, she had not slept or rested to cast the profound formation. She had indeed exhausted a huge amount of energy and mental energy. Let's wait here for a while. Grandpa de Bayo and the others should be fine, right? Chu Luiwe took a deep breath and snorted. They are the only ones who can bully others. How can others bully them? Achoo! Lan Xiao suddenly sneezed. He rubbed his nose and mumbled, "Who is it that thinks of me so much?" Looking around, it was still dark. He sighed and lay back down. These days are really too boring. I say, why don't you send a few people over and this young master will help you train them? No one answered. Lan Xiao snorted. Forget it if you don't want to. Back then, so many people begged me, but this young master refused. Now, you missed such a good opportunity. Seriously, you're just a defeated general. All your glory in the past has turned into smoke. Living in the past will only make others pity you. That voice came from afar. Lan Zhao's lips curled up into a sinister smile. You know very well who's living in the past. Miss Little Hachi. Little Hachi was curled up in the recliner and sleeping with her eyes closed. Suddenly, she heard a man's voice coming from outside the courtyard. She couldn't help but open her eyes and look over curiously. A man was standing outside the door, looking over with a nervous and expectant face. This courtyard was very big. There was only a short bamboo fence surrounding the outside, which didn't affect one's vision. Therefore, the people outside could easily see the situation inside the courtyard. It was the same for the people inside the courtyard. Who are you? Little Hachi asked blankly. That man instantly felt as if a bucket of cold water had been poured over him, and he looked awkward for a moment. However, he quickly adjusted himself and chuckled. Miss Little Hachi, I'm Liang He. We met at the Herb Mountain before. Little Hachi blinked and remembered that she seemed to have seen this face before. Oh, it's you. I'm sorry, my memory isn't very good. Usually, I don't remember people who aren't especially good-looking. Her attitude towards people and objects was the same, she would only pick good-looking ones. She would even pick the petals for bathing, let alone people. This Liang He looked to be around 27 or 28 years old. Compared to ordinary people, he was considered good-looking. However, in Little Hachi's eyes, he was just like a normal person. Liang He was defeated, but he wasn't angry. Because Little Hachi indeed had the right to say that. Moreover, he had fallen in love with Little Hachi at first sight. When he heard this, he only felt that Little Hachi was really cute and straightforward. He wasn't angry at all. That's fine. I'll come here a few more times in the future. Miss Little Hachi will be familiar with me. Little Hachi suddenly thought of something and looked at him suspiciously. How do you know my name? Liang He smiled and said, naturally, I went to ask around. Little Hachi is so beautiful that it didn't take much effort to ask. I've offended you a bit. What I've done is a little offensive. Is Miss Little 8 unhappy? Little Hachi laughed. What's there to be unhappy about? She had seen this kind of thing many times, so she didn't care. Could it be that she could really stay in the illusory god palace while concealing her identity? Speak, what did you come to find me for? If there's nothing important, I'm going to rest. Yes. Liang He hastily said. Previously, Miss Little Hachi said that you wanted the soul sky fruit. I came here to give it to you. I've brought all the things that Miss 8 has taken a fancy to. Little Hachi was originally lazy, but when she heard this, she immediately revealed a surprised expression. All of them. There are more than 100 of them. Liang He chuckled and said eagerly, that's right. Yes, they're all here. Little Hachi raised her eyebrows and looked at him with a questioning gaze. She said with a smile that wasn't a smile, "Won't the 8th divine emissary be angry if he knows what you've done?" "Miss Xiaoba, you might not know this, but there are many other places on the medicinal mountain where soul heavenly fruits grow. The ones that I have brought are merely a portion of them. Lord Divine Envoy will not be angry about this." Little Hachi smirked at his words. So the 7th divine emissary wasn't lying when he said that he could use anything on Herb Mountain. The one who really didn't want her to take the soul sky fruits was the lofty 8th divine emissary. Chapter 2207. As if reading her mind, Liang He hurriedly said, "Miss Little Hachi, don't be angry. The 8th messenger isn't targeting you, but he's targeting everyone who doesn't have a bloodline totem, right?" Little Hachi replied. Liang He's expression was a bit awkward. "Actually, you can't say that. Guarding the Herb Mountain is the 8th messenger's responsibility. How about this, if you want anything in the future, just tell me and I'll get it for you. How about that?" To him and the others in the Illusion God Palace, there was nothing wrong with the 8th messenger's actions. Besides, Little Hachi was a high god, so the 8th messenger naturally didn't like her. Little Hachi waved her hand. "That's not necessary. I'm not that down yet." Liang He sensed that she seemed to be angry, so he didn't dare to barge in and make her even angrier. "Then, these soul heavenly fruits. You can keep them for yourself." Little Hachi sneered in her heart and lay back down, showing that she had no interest in continuing the conversation. Liang He was a bit embarrassed, but seeing her impatient expression, he could only say, I don't need these things. I'll leave them with Little Hachi. Have a good rest. I'll come back another day." After he finished speaking, he actually really placed the over 100 heavenly soul fruits at the door. With every step he took, he would turn around and leave reluctantly. Hua Shuangshuang walked out of the house and glanced at Liang He who had already left. "Little Hachi, he's kind enough to give them to you. You really don't want them? It's just a bunch of soul heavenly fruits. What's so special about them?" Little Hachi rolled her eyes. "If I really want something, can't I just snatch it myself? Why would I need someone to give it to me? Besides, there are so many people who want to curry favor with me. If I accept all those things, won't I die of exhaustion?" Hua Shuangshuang laughed and nodded in agreement. "That's true. All these years, whenever Little Hachi wanted something, she would either look for her master or the 13th U guard. Anyway, she had someone doting on her, so she had never had to worry about such things. Little Hachi, I think you really need to refine something. The words on your tongue have almost faded by half." Hua Shuangshuang reminded. Little Hachi dragged her voice. "I know." Xu Jing returned to the illusory shrine and bumped into Jin Yunlai. Jin Yunlai nodded in greeting and was about to leave. "Wait." Xu Jing stopped him. Jin Yunlai turned around. "What's the matter?" Xu Jing nodded and asked, "Were you the one who brought in those high gods without bloodline totems?" Jin Yunlai's expression did not change. "Yes." "What's wrong?" Xu Jing frowned. "Don't you know what's going on? How can such people be let in? For so many years, such people have never come to the illusory shrine. It's really, they crossed the sea, got on the bridge, and reached the divine gate. Naturally, they are qualified to come in." Jin Yunlai interrupted him and stared at him. "What, did any of them offend you?" Xu Jing suppressed the anger in his heart. "No, I just feel that it's strange to see such people in the illusory shrine." "Are you doubting me?" Xu Jing's heart skipped a beat. He immediately denied it. "That's good." Jin Yunlai was much taller than Xu Jing. Standing in front of her, he naturally had a strong sense of oppression. If anyone offends you, you just have to punish them according to the rules. As for what you asked just now, I'll pretend I didn't hear it this time. There won't be a next time. There was a warning in his voice. Xu Jing bit his lips. Yes. On the Star Road, Mu Yafeng had been standing in the same place for 3 whole days without moving. She stared at the Xian formation under her feet and frowned. Countless possible patterns were sketched in her mind, but they didn't match. This Xian formation was really difficult to comprehend. She knew very well in her heart that she would not be able to solve this problem without a month or so. It was just that, she had just solved a few Xian formations. If she gave up and went back now, she really felt that she would lose face. She had been on this path for too long. In the beginning, everything went smoothly. But gradually, the Xian formation became more and more difficult to crack. Every step forward required a huge amount of energy and a price. She couldn't remember how many times she had gone back and forth. And every time, the time she stayed on this path became shorter and shorter. The closer she got to the illusory shrine, the more difficult the Xian formation became. It wasn't something she could understand after studying it for a few days. Even if she didn't go back now, she wouldn't be able to move forward for a long time. Although there were no onlookers on both sides of the Star Road, she knew that there were still many people watching her. All her actions and performances here would spread throughout the illusory God Palace in a very short time. Anyway, no matter what she chose, she would inevitably be talked about. If you can't understand it for the time being, you can go back and study it carefully. A familiar voice came. Mu Yafeng looked up and saw the person who came. She bent her knees and bowed. Greetings, 7th Oracle. I want to try again. Jin Yunlai shook her head. This Xian formation is more complicated than you think. Back then, I used a full 3 months to barely understand a little. It was already a year later when I completely understood it. There's no point for you to stay here for a while longer. Hearing this, Mu Yafeng's expression wavered. After a moment, she finally sighed. I'm sorry to disappoint you. That's not true. If this Star Road was really so easy to traverse, there wouldn't be so few people who passed through it in tens of thousands of years. You're already very outstanding. You don't have to give yourself so much pressure. Mu Yafeng's mood finally eased a little. Jin Yunlai's words meant that she was still the one he thought the most highly of. Thank you, Oracle, for your advice. She was about to leave when she suddenly remembered something and looked back. By the way, where is that person now? I haven't heard anything these 2 days. Jin Yunlai's expression was as cold as ever. She already gave up 2 days ago and left the Star Road. I guess she's also stuck in some Xian formation. Mu Yafeng's eyes drooped slightly. That's a pity. I thought she could reach the Grandmaster Xian formation in one go. Jin Yunlai shook her head. You overestimated her. After all, she doesn't have a bloodline totem. You don't have to worry about it. Just focus on comprehending the rest. Yes. In the magnificent hall, Rong Xiao stood with his hands behind his back. Unlike before, he was now wearing a black robe. There was a hint of coldness and disdain on his cold and noble face. Swish! He raised his hand, and a bamboo scroll slowly unfolded in front of him. Rows and rows of names gradually appeared on the surface. It was the Pantheon record. There was a place that seemed to have been burned, and the name was blurry. A faint layer of gold shrouded it. Compared to the last time, the name had moved forward a lot. Chapter 2208. Shrouded in the golden light, the name was blurry and hard to distinguish. However, it contained an inexplicably powerful aura that made it different from the other names on the Pantheon record. Although the difference was very slight, it was real. Rongxiu raised his hand and his slender fingers brushed over the name. The golden light grew brighter and shrouded the aura within. The aura that was about to overflow was gradually reduced, dissipated, and disappeared without a trace. The sound of footsteps echoed in the spacious hall. Master. Yumo stepped forward and saw Rongxiu summoning the Pantheon record. He couldn't help but be shocked and knelt on one knee. Rongxiu moved his hand and the Pantheon record was put away. It turned into a stream of light and quickly disappeared. Rongxiu turned around and looked at Yumo. Yumo said respectfully, Master, Madam has left the star path and has cracked the gigantic spirit formation. Rongxiu nodded slightly and didn't seem surprised. Yumo hesitated for a moment and asked, Master, the palace of the illusory god, wait and see. Yes. Yumo was certain. It seemed that Master didn't plan to do anything for the time being. Is Yengu back? Rongxiu suddenly thought of something and asked. Yumo immediately said, yes. Tell him to stay put. If it's not necessary, there's no need for him to show up. Yumo silently cried tears of sympathy for Yengu in his heart. Since he was exiled, he had been thinking about coming back every day. It wasn't easy for him to wait for this day. But before he could be happy enough, he was grounded again. Sigh, how pitiful. Yumo tried his best not to smile so widely. Yes. I'll go now. With that, he got up and left respectfully. Soon, only Rongxiu was left in the hall. Gigantic spirit formation, Rongxiu's lips curved up into a light smile. Looks like there's no hurry. Chu Luiyue rested in his residence for 3 days. After adjusting his condition, he went out. As soon as he arrived at the door, he saw a lot of natural treasures piled up outside. She glanced at them and found that they were all the more precious ones. She turned around and looked at little Hachi, who was curled up in the recliner. Little Hachi, where did these things come from? Little Hachi didn't even open her eyes. She turned over and mumbled sleepily, someone gave it to me. Others? Is it a gift? Chu Luiyue blinked. Ever since they came to the illusory god palace, they had been discriminated against everywhere. There weren't many people who were willing to look at them in the eye, yet someone had actually sent them gifts. Moreover, he was very generous. Even from her point of view, this was definitely not a small fortune. Yeah, I think, what's his name again? Oh, I forgot. Chu Luiyue was speechless. Master, that was sent by Liang He. Hua Shuangshuang walked out of the room on the other side and explained as she walked. Liang He. Chu Luiyue was unfamiliar with this name. Although she was also present on the day Liang He came, she was thinking about how Debaya used the Xian formation to trick her and didn't pay attention to anything else. Yes. Ever since Little 8 and I went to the Herb Mountain a few days ago, Liang He has been coming over every day. Every time, he would send some herbs over. Little Hachi snorted. I already said that I don't want it, but he insisted. What can I do? The meaning of rejection couldn't be more obvious. Unfortunately, Liang He was also stubborn. He didn't care about being splashed with cold water every day and was very persistent. Although he came to deliver things, he never rashly came in. Every time, he would leave after saying a few words. From a certain point of view, he knew his limits. Little Hachi was indifferent to this. Seeing that she couldn't persuade him, she simply let him be. After a long time, he will give up. Chu Luiyue knew that this kind of thing was commonplace for little Hachi, so she didn't want to interfere. She was concerned about another matter. Aren't the things on the Herb Mountain allowed to be used freely? Why does Liang He still send them over every day? Little Hachi heard this and her body stiffened. Finally, she opened her eyes. Hua Shuang paused for a moment, then briefly explained what happened that day. Although they didn't want to make things difficult for their master, this kind of thing couldn't be hidden. Chu Luiyue frowned slightly after hearing this. There's such a rule. Without a bloodline totem, there were a lot of restrictions in this place. Master, the seventh messenger only said half of what he said that day. According to the eighth messenger, even if you have a bloodline totem, there are certain conditions if you want to use the herbs on the herb mountain. As a celestial physician, you have more authority than the average person. And the higher the rank of a celestial physician, the more freedom you have in the herb mountain and the more herbs you can use. Hua Shuang rubbed her chin. I heard that Liang He is the youngest supreme doctor in the illusory god palace. A supreme doctor was in existence above a grand doctor. Chu Luiyue's eyes flashed slightly. She looked at little Hachi and laughed teasingly. Little Hachi, it seems that the one pursuing you this time is a genuine young talent. Little Hachi's red lips curled. His looks are average, no. Chu Luiyue knew that she had always been obsessed with looks, so she was just joking. However, according to this rule, it will be troublesome if we want to go to the herb mountain to get herbs. Although she didn't have any herbs on hand right now, there were clearly many good things on the herb mountain. It would be a pity if she missed this opportunity. Little girl, if you really need herbs, you don't have to go to the herb mountain. Xiao Ran's voice came from outside the door. Chu Luiyue smiled and went to open the door. Senior Xiao Ran, why are you here? Xiao Ran shrugged. It's been a bit boring in the house for the past 2 days, so I came out for a walk. When I passed by, I heard you guys talking about the herb mountain, so I came. Chu Luiyue nodded and asked. What did you mean by that? Xiao Ran bit the toothpick in her mouth and smiled. You guys have been in the illusory god palace for a while, but you don't even know this? There are so many of you, could it be that you've been here all this time and haven't walked around? Chu Luiyue was silent for a moment. Now that she said it, it really was. Seeing Chu Luiyue's reaction, Xiao Ran was speechless and helplessly shook her head. Actually, other than the herb mountain and lightning pool, there are many other interesting places in the illusory god palace. Why are you guys always here? As for the herbs, it's not just you guys. Many cultivators who aren't celestial physician or aren't strong enough have the same problem. They usually go to the precious treasure pavilion to buy them. The price is fair and the items are good. Precious treasure pavilion. Chu Luiyue subconsciously said with a surprised expression. Xiao Ran was stunned. Yeah, it's the biggest shop in the illusory god palace. Not only do they have herbs, they also have many other treasures. Why, is there a problem? Chapter 2209. Chu Luiyue came back to his senses and smiled. It's nothing. It's just that the name sounds familiar. I've heard of it before. Xiao Ran didn't mind. Anyway, the name of this place is always the same. Chu Luiyue thought about it and agreed. But it was quite a coincidence. You're saying that there are other treasures besides herbs? Yes. You're new here, so you don't know. Many cultivators in the illusory god palace have a close relationship with the precious treasure pavilion. For example, the higher-ranked celestial physician can take some herbs from the herb mountain. They can sell these herbs through the precious treasure pavilion and make a profit. This way, they can also give it to those who can't take herbs from the herb mountain. Everyone can take what they need, so why not? For example, Chu Luiyue, if he wanted to enter the herb mountain, he had to provide a grand physician level pill. This was a huge price and not worth it. If he chose to go to the precious treasure pavilion, he could get what he wanted at a lower cost. Overall, this was beneficial to everyone. Except for the 8th Divine Envoy. If that's the case, the 8th Divine Envoy has no objections. Little Hachi and the others only wanted to take some soul sky fruits, but they were rejected by the 8th divine envoy. The existence of the precious treasure pavilion would undoubtedly reduce the benefits of the 8th divine envoy. But the 8th divine envoy actually accepted it. Xiao Ran sneered. Of course she has objections, but it's useless. She can control the herb mountain, but she won't dare to touch the precious treasure pavilion. Oh. Why is that? Chu Luiyue was curious. The divine envoys had a very high status in the illusory god palace. What kind of background did the precious treasure pavilion have to not be afraid of them? Isn't it simple? It's because of the person in the precious treasure pavilion. She can't afford to offend him. As Xiao Ran spoke, he looked around, as if he was a little afraid. Actually, very few people dare to mention that person in the illusory god palace. I'm just mentioning it to you today. You know it in your heart. Chu Luiyue had a question in his throat, but he swallowed it down. Thank you. What's there to thank me for? Xiao Ran shook his head unconcernedly. He put his hands behind his head and walked 2 steps before he turned around and said, "Oh right. I see that you're quite talented as a mystic cultivator. If there's anything you don't understand, just look for me. I'm really too bored." Chu Luiyue had heard him say this more than once. He couldn't help but laugh. Definitely. Xiao Ran swaggered away. Yi Xia thought for a moment, then turned around and said, "I'll go take a look at the treasure pavilion." Hua Shuangshuang said, "Mistress, let me go with you." "I'm going too." Little Hachi finally got up from the recliner, yawned, and walked over lazily. Her half-asleep and half-awake appearance was quite charming. Chu Luiyue combed her messy hair and said with a smile, "Little Hachi, you don't have to go since you're so sleepy, right?" "I'm going." "I don't have, there were no more herbs." Little Hachi swallowed the last few words. "Anyway, I'm quite bored here, so I'll go out with Mistress." As she spoke, she hugged Chu Luiyue's arm and leaned her head on Chu Luiyue's shoulder. Chu Luiyue nodded. "Then let's go together." The illusion god palace occupied a large area, with rows upon rows of houses and courtyards. Fortunately, the treasure pavilion was in a good location, so they quickly found it. There were many people on the way who were also heading in the same direction as them. When they arrived, they confirmed that those people were indeed heading for the Zhenbao pavilion. At this time, people were coming and going in front of the treasure pavilion. It was very lively. Chu Luiyue stood still and looked forward. This was an exquisitely carved 3-story building. Just from the outside, one could tell that it wasn't small. There was a plaque with golden words hanging on it, Treasure Pavilion. It really was the same name as Yao Chen's shop, but the handwriting was different. She suppressed the chaotic thoughts in her mind and headed for the treasure pavilion. Quite a number of people looked over. It wasn't that Chu Luiyue and the others were showing off. It was just that the 3 of them were already too conspicuous standing there. Hua Shuangshuang was extremely tall and well-built. She stood out among the crowd. Little Hachi's enchanting beauty was indescribable, and she was born to attract attention. As for Chu Luiyue, she was incomparably beautiful and unrestrained. Her entire body exuded a noble aura that came from her bones. More importantly, the news of her walking the Star Road and reaching the Grand Mystic Emperor Division's Mystic Formation area in the shortest time had already spread like wildfire. "Isn't that Sheng Wanyu?" "Who?" "That's the one. The one who broke Mu Yafeng's record. I heard that she was trapped by the giant spirit formation a few days ago, so she gave up and went back. I didn't expect to see her here again today. You guys forgot that she doesn't have a bloodline totem. She's probably here to buy herbs or something." The 2 beside her seemed to be the 2 people who were chased out of Herb Mountain by the 8th Divine Envoy a few days ago. Little Hachi ground her teeth, her beautiful eyes overflowing with killing intent. Chu Luiyue patted her hand and chuckled. All right, we're here to buy things. Why are you getting angry with them? Let's go in later and see what we want. We'll buy as much as we can. Little Hachi smiled. Master is still the best to me. Chu Luiyue and the others ignored the various gazes around them and entered the treasure pavilion. What did you say? Master told me not to come out for the time being. Yan Gu, who was leisurely fiddling with a jade item, looked up in shock when he heard this. It can't be. I just came back. Yuemo patted him on the shoulder. I'm deeply sympathetic, but this is Master's intention. You know. Yan Ji's eyes twitched. He pulled his hand down and said expressionlessly, next time when you're expressing sympathy, don't smile so brightly. It'll be more convincing. No matter what, Master has already transferred you back. He just wants you to appear less for the time being. Isn't this better than before? Yan Gu looked at him speechlessly and asked weakly, what are you talking about? Did Master say how long it would take? He didn't say. Yuemo chuckled. Don't worry too much. Since Madam and the rest are already here, it won't be long. Suddenly, Yan Ji's expression changed. She's here. Yuemo was stunned. Who's here? Yan Gu almost rolled his eyes. Who else can it be? Madam is here. I'll go. Yuemo immediately became nervous. Then I'll leave first. Be careful. Without waiting for Yan Ji's reply, he disappeared from the room in a flash. Yan Ji's face twitched violently. Bah! What a shameless person. Just like Yan Qing. After cursing for a while, Yan Gu felt better. But when he thought of that person downstairs, his heart could not calm down. Chapter 22:10. The space inside Jinbao Pavilion was bigger than it looked from the outside. The entire first floor was a huge square exhibition hall. The four walls were inlaid with long cabinets made of white crystals. All kinds of treasures were placed on the cabinets in picturesque disorder. In the middle, there was a spiral staircase. In front of the staircase was a counter. A middle-aged man was standing there. He looked like the person in charge. Other than him, there were no other servants on the first floor. Instead, more than 10 customers were strolling around casually. According to Xiao Ran, Jinbao Pavilion had a powerful backer. Even the 8th divine envoy didn't dare to offend them. It was no wonder that this place looked so relaxed. They weren't afraid of anyone causing trouble. Unless there was something wrong with your head, you wouldn't offend Jinbao Pavilion. Seeing Chu Luiyue and the others enter, everyone in the room looked over with different expressions. Curiosity, inquiry, disdain. Chu Luiyue was about to walk to the side when she suddenly felt a gaze land on her. Her heart skipped a beat and she looked up. A woman in a long green dress was looking at her. This woman looked to be in her 20s. She had a graceful figure and was delicate and elegant. There was a faint arrogance between her eyebrows. Chu Luiyue didn't recognize her. But the other party's gaze made her feel a little strange. You're Shang Wanyu? She asked softly. Chu Luiyue nodded. Yes. May I know who you are, Sister Yafeng? Why are you greeting this kind of person? Before the woman could speak, a young woman beside her spoke up. As she spoke, her eyes were filled with impatience and disdain as they swept over Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue immediately understood. So it's Miss Mu. Mu Yafeng looked at the woman disapprovingly. Miss Shangwan is extremely talented as a mystic cultivator. You can't be so rude. As she spoke, she smiled faintly at Chu Luiyue. I heard that Miss Shangwan broke the record. I'm really impressed. The woman pursed her lips and said softly. So what? Without a bloodline totem, he wouldn't be able to walk for long. What's there to show off now? Chu Luiwei raised his eyebrows slightly. I am but a mere great Xian King teacher, and there is still quite a large gap between me and a great grandmaster like Miss Mu. This admiration is not something I can bear. The woman snorted. At least you have some self-awareness. Mu Yafing gave her a warning look and smiled apologetically. I'm sorry, my sister didn't mean to offend you. Didn't I offend you unintentionally? Little Hachi crossed her arms and chuckled. I really don't know if I should say that Miss Mu's younger sister is too outspoken, or that Miss Mu is not good at disciplining her. Mu Yafing and Mu Yafing's expressions changed. Chu Luiwei tugged at little Hachi and smiled. I'm sorry, our little Hachi is also a straightforward person. His words left the other party speechless. We still have things to do, so we won't disturb you. As Chu Luiwei spoke, he pulled little Hachi to the side. Little Hachi, look over here. Is there anything you want? They walked to the other side. How arrogant! The woman shouted in a low voice, unconvinced. Enough. We didn't come here to quarrel. Mu Yafing said with a frown. That woman sensed that she was really angry, and only then did she stop talking. Mu Yafing walked to the counter in the middle. The anger on her face had already dissipated and was replaced with a gentle smile. Lord Ming, I heard that the second master has returned. Digression, 6 p.m. Chapter 22:11. Chu Luiwei stopped in his tracks. Mingshu chuckled and replied, That's right. Miss Mu's news is really fast. The second master has just returned, and you already know. Mu Yafing smiled gently. The second master has been away for several years, and we can't help but miss him. May I know if he's upstairs now? I have something to discuss with him. Mingshu immediately said, He's here. Miss Mu, please wait for a moment. I'll go ask for instructions for you. Sorry to trouble you, Lord Ming. It's just a small matter, not worth mentioning. Mingshu went upstairs after he finished speaking. The entire treasure pavilion was under their control, so they didn't have to worry about anything happening after leaving for a while. However, after Mingshu went upstairs, the people on the first floor were surprised and started discussing in low voices. The second master is back. When did this happen? Why didn't I hear about it? It seems to be just a few days ago. We don't know the details, but there have been rumors in private. However, the second master hasn't shown up since he came back. He left for a long time this time, right? I don't know where he went, but some people guessed that he left the Illusion God Palace. Sure. We don't dare to talk about this kind of thing. Besides, it's not important. What's important is that the second master is back, so the treasure pavilion's main warehouse should be open now, right? Since he left, there are only 2 small warehouses left in operation, and many things are very scarce. That's true. But then again, Mu Yafing's reputation is really big. She directly asked to see the second master as soon as she arrived. If it were me, I wouldn't have such confidence, ha. After all, she's the most promising person to complete the star path, and she's highly regarded by the 7th divine envoy and the others. Naturally, she's different from us. Mu Yafing stood there with her hands crossed and placed on her lower abdomen. Her expression was calm. Only the subtle ripples in her eyes could be seen, and there was a hint of loftiness. After a while, Mingshu came down from upstairs. She looked up, and a smile appeared on her lips again. Lord Ming, can I go up now? However, Mingshu's expression was a little strange. He hesitated for a moment and declined tactfully. Miss Mu, the second master said he's not feeling well today, so he won't see any guests. If you have anything to say, you can pass it on to me. As soon as he said that, the entire first floor fell silent. The smile on Mu Yafeng's face instantly froze. Lord Ming, what do you mean by this? Yu was also in a very difficult position, but he didn't dare to disobey the second master's words. Second master has indeed been working hard recently. Please forgive me. He was determined not to let her go up. Mu Yafeng pursed her lips. In the past, when she came, the second master would never refuse to see her. As for not feeling well, it was just an excuse. He just didn't want to see her. However, she didn't seem to have offended that person, did she? Mu Yafeng thought about it but still could not figure it out. She could only suppress these thoughts for now. Actually, I came here today mainly because I haven't seen Second Master for a few years, so I came to pay you a visit. But since it's still inconvenient for you, then, forget it. Zhao heaved a sigh of relief, and the smile on his face became much more sincere. Thank you for your understanding, Miss Mu. Then you can take a look around. If there's anything you like, just tell me. Mu Yafeng smiled faintly. You're too kind. Is the second volume of the mythical diagram of fire on the second floor of the treasure pavilion still there? Mingshu said, This? It's still there. The mythical diagram of fire was divided into 2 volumes. It recorded thousands of Grandmaster-level Xian formations and had rather detailed annotations. It was extremely beneficial for the cultivation of Xian masters. In comparison, the first volume was simpler, while the second volume was much more difficult. Because of this, the price of the second volume was several times that of the first volume. Even for the people of the illusory god palace, it was an absolutely sky-high price. Mu Yafeng had bought the first volume before. It was precisely because of that she could greatly reduce the time it took to understand the Xian formations on the Star Passage. A few days ago, she was trapped again and had no choice but to give up and return from the Star Passage. She studied it alone for several days, but she had no clue at all. At this time, she realized that the 7th Divine Emissary's words were not an exaggeration. If she really did it herself, she might not succeed even after a few years. However, she really didn't want to wait that long, so she thought of the second volume of the mythical diagram of fire. Although this thing was very, very expensive, and buying it would definitely make her bankrupt and even cause her to be in debt. However, she still made up her mind. That was what she was here for today. Hearing that the thing was still there, she revealed a smile. Since it's still there, I want to go to the second floor and buy it. As she spoke, she lifted her foot and was about to go to the second floor. However, Zhao suddenly reached out and stopped her. Miss Mu, wait. It's not good for you to go up to the second floor. Mu Yafeng never thought that she would be stopped here and was stunned for a moment. Why? Why? The second floor of the treasure pavilion was indeed not a place that anyone could go up to. However, she was not included among these people. In the past, she had been to the treasure pavilion many times, and she had always been able to freely enter and exit the second floor. Why was it suddenly not possible this time? Is Lord Ming worried that I can't afford the second volume of the mythical diagram of fire? That's not it. Zhao rubbed his hands, as if deliberating over his words. It's just. I'm afraid I can't sell the second volume to you. Mu Yafeng was stunned. Mingshu paused for a moment, then explained. The second master means. From today onwards, only the first floor will be open. The second and third floors will be closed for the time being. Similarly, the items inside will not be sold. The second volume of the mythical diagram of fire is on the second floor, so it's naturally included. Please go back. Mu Yafeng had never been treated like this. Not only did he not allow her to go up to the second floor, but he also did not intend to sell the items. Her face turned cold. Lord Ming, the treasure pavilion is open for business. I'm afraid it's inappropriate for you to reject people like this. Although the people beside her did not say anything, their expressions showed that they agreed with Mu Yafeng's words. Although there were many good things on the first floor, everyone knew that the best were on the second and third floors. Now that they were not allowed to go up, and they were not even selling the items, what was going on? Zhao curled the corners of his mouth, and his tone was polite but did not allow for any rebuttal. Miss Mu, it seems that it's not up to you to decide how the treasure pavilion does business. But Sister Yafeng isn't wrong. How can you open the door and not sell things? It's not like we can't afford it. The woman standing next to Mu Yafeng could not help but mutter in a low voice. However, the room was very quiet at this time, and her words were heard clearly by everyone present. The last trace of a smile on Zhao's face dissipated. With one hand behind his back, his voice turned cold. This is the first master's intention. Mu Yafeng was shocked. A chill rose from the soles of her feet and rushed to the top of her head. Chapter 22:12. This treasure pavilion was founded by the first master. Even if everything here was burned down, the first master would only be there for the show, let alone closing it down. Miss Mu, I know that the seventh divine emissary thinks highly of you, but even if he came here personally today, he can't go up to the second floor. Please consider it carefully. Zhao was trying to persuade them nicely, but he was very unhappy with Mu Yafeng and her servant's attitude. The reason why he was being courteous was because of Jin Yunlai. Unfortunately, Mu Yafeng didn't seem to realize this. She hadn't even finished the star path, but she was already putting on airs. It was really funny. Although Mingshu didn't say these words clearly, his expression couldn't be more obvious. Mu Yafeng only felt her face burning as if she had been slapped hard. She had been in the illusory god palace for so many years. Because of the seventh divine emissary's support, the others had always been very polite to her. This was the first time she had been rebuked like this. However, the other party was someone she couldn't afford to offend. Then we'll come back another day, Miss Mu, I won't see you off. Mingshu's casual words almost choked Mu Yafeng to death. She hurriedly said goodbye and pulled her servant away. The atmosphere on the first floor instantly became very awkward. Soon, the others left one after another. Soon, only Chu Luiyue and the other two were left on the first floor. It wasn't that they had other ideas, but they didn't want to make a wasted trip. In any case, the master and servant trio were quite generous. Master, I want this, and this. Little Hachi pointed at a few herbs in the long cabinet. Chu Luiyue raised his eyebrows slightly. You know how to choose. All of them were expensive items. Little Hachi blinked. Master, will you buy them? Chu Luiyue gently knocked her forehead. Yes. As soon as he said that, Mingshu's voice was full of praise. This lady has good eyesight. Chu Luiyue turned his head and saw that Mingshu had unknowingly arrived beside them. At this moment, the coldness on his face had completely disappeared and was replaced by a warm smile. These are all top-notch medicinal herbs. Chu Luiyue was speechless. Wasn't this Lord Ming very arrogant just now? Why did she suddenly become so enthusiastic in the blink of an eye? With Zhenbao Pavilion status, it seemed that there was no need for them to praise themselves like this, right? However, these thoughts only flashed through his mind. Since the other party had given her so much face, she naturally welcomed it. Chu Luiyue's red lips curved slightly. The things in the treasure pavilion are naturally the best. He smiled and cupped his hands. This humble one has long heard of Miss Shangwan's great name. I'm really happy to see him today. Miss Shangwan, please take a look. If there's anything you want, just tell me. If there wasn't any here, there were plenty in the storehouse. Chu Luiyue was speechless. Isn't this Lord Ming a little too enthusiastic? This is completely different from his attitude towards Mu Yafeng and the others just now. Thank you, Lord Ming. We came here today because of your reputation. As for what we want to buy, we'll have to take a look for a while. Why don't you go ahead first? Ming Shu chuckled. No hurry, no hurry. Aren't there only a few of you left in the shop now? Chu Luiyue was speechless. Then. Thank you in advance, Lord Ming. What are you thanking me for? Ming Shu waved his hand and walked to the long cabinet filled with precious medicinal herbs. Look, these Futian orchids are all thousands of years old. They were just picked and are very fresh. And this spirit bamboo is specially cultivated with ice spring irrigation. Its medicinal effect is very pure. Little Hachi's beautiful eyes sparkled. Mistress, these are all really good things. Speaking of which, they are much more precious than the soul sky fruit. Chu Luiyue coughed. Of course, she knew that these were all rare treasures, but the price. May I ask Lord Ming, if you want to buy these things, what do you need to exchange for them? Before coming, Xiao Ran had already said that Precious Treasure Pavilion didn't accept money and only accepted barter. Although she had many things on her, there weren't many that she could take out to exchange. Ming Shu laughed. If Miss Shangguan wants these, you don't need to exchange for anything. You just need to do me a favor. What favor? I heard that Miss Shangguan is extremely talented in Xian masters, so I would like to ask you to copy a scroll for me. Chu Luiyue immediately understood something. A Xian formation diagram. That's right. Ming Shu nodded. Actually, this wasn't anything new. There were countless Xian formations in this world, but it was impossible for ordinary people to engrave a Xian formation for future generations to see and comprehend. Only Xian masters who were strong enough could do it. But, there are so many Xian masters in the illusory god palace. Who knows how many of them are stronger than me? Why did Lord Ming choose me? Ming Shu smiled. Naturally, it's because you are currently the most talented person in the illusory god palace. Seeming to have seen her confusion, he continued to explain. Before you, the most outstanding person was Mu Yafeng, but your performance on the star path had already completely crushed her. So, we are more at ease if we leave this matter to you. In other words, Mu Yafeng didn't have the qualifications. Chu Luiyue pondered and felt that this wasn't unreasonable. Then. You want me to copy the Xian formation diagram of a great Xian master? No. Ming Shu shook his head and said word by word. It's the mythical flame diagram. Chapter 22:13. On the second floor. Yan Gu pressed his ear against the door and held his breath as he listened. Hearing Zhao's words, he pounded his chest in frustration. This idiot. How can he be so direct? He had only asked Zhao to test the waters and see if he could send out the mythical flame diagram quietly. How could it be so obvious in the end? Even an idiot could tell that something was wrong. He was already upset that his master did not allow him to show his face. Now that he asked Zhao to do something on his behalf, he made it so difficult. Immediately after, he heard his master's wife only pause for a moment before she quickly agreed. Okay. She did not seem to hesitate and did not ask anything. Ming Shu immediately said, please. Yan Gu slapped his forehead and took a deep breath. He had not been back for a few years, but this idiot did not improve at all. He could not count on him, but fortunately, he had given it away. He would take it one step at a time. Miss Shangguan, please follow me. Hearing that the two were about to go upstairs, Yan Gu quickly took a few steps back and completely concealed his aura. After taking 2 steps, Zhao suddenly thought of something and looked at little Hachi and Hua Shuang. Well, if you have taken a fancy to anything, just take it. I only need to make a list. In the future, these will all be on Miss Shangwan's account. The few of them were smart people, so they immediately understood what he meant. Only Chu Luyue could go up to the 2nd floor. Chu Luyue did not mind and looked at the two. Just take your pick. You can go back when you're done. I might be a little late. Hua Shuang said, Master, we have nothing to do when we go back. Why don't we just wait here? Chu Luyue smiled and shook his head. No need. I'll go back when I'm done here. Seeing Chu Luyue's firm attitude, Hua Shuang and little Hachi could not stop him and could only agree. In a place like Jinbao Pavilion, there was no need for them to do anything in private, so there was nothing to worry about. Little Hachi was indeed lacking in medicinal herbs. Seeing that she had the support of her master, she didn't hold back and directly took away half of the wall. Chu Luyue. Little Hachi, I remember that you took a lot from Sansan. Why do you want so much now? Little Aide blinked and smiled enchantingly, saying coquettishly, Master, you know that I'm very picky when it comes to these kinds of things. Naturally, I'll use them faster. Chu Luyue tapped between her eyebrows. All right, just take it away. If it's not enough, we can always come back again. Little Hachi's beautiful eyes sparkled. Master, the way you spend money for me is the most beautiful. Chu Luyue was already immune to her tricks. After Zhao finished registering, he sent the two of them away. Phew, seeing the two of them leave with satisfaction, Chu Luyue let out a long sigh of relief. Was it easy to raise a family? Miss Shangwan, please come with me. From beginning to end, Zhao was very patient. Chu Luyue nodded. Thank you, Master Ming. As they spoke, the two of them walked toward the stairs in the middle. Chu Luyue came to the front and took a look. The stairs didn't look any different from the stairs in other places. She originally thought that there would be a barrier or something. However, after thinking about it carefully, she felt that Jinbao Pavilion was more mysterious and powerful. There were no barriers or defenses, and there weren't many people here. It looked casual, but in fact, it was all based on powerful strength and background. Miss Shangwan, please. Zhao turned sideways and raised his hand, inviting Chu Luyue to go up first. Chu Luyue was about to move when she suddenly heard a surprised voice from the door. Master Ming, what are you doing? This voice was somewhat familiar. Chu Luyue half turned and looked back, raising her eyebrows slightly. Standing outside the door and looking over here with a shocked expression, who else could it be but Mu Yafeng? Miss Mu, why are you here again? Seeing that it was Mu Yafeng, the smile on Zhao's face faded a lot, and his tone was no longer as polite and eager as when he was talking to Chu Luyue. Mu Yafeng opened her mouth. On the way back, she suddenly remembered that she still lacked some herbs besides the mythical flame diagram, so she turned back. However, she didn't expect to see such a scene as soon as she arrived. What were they doing? If she didn't hear wrongly, Zhao was actually inviting that Shangwanyu upstairs. She had just been rejected this request. It had only happened in the blink of an eye. She saw clearly that Zhao's attitude toward that Shangwanyu was several times better than his attitude toward her. Even when she came here in the past and Zhao treated her politely, she had never received such treatment. Mu Yafeng's mind was in a mess, and it took her a while to find her voice. I just wanted to come back to buy some herbs, but... Master Ming, didn't you just say that the 2nd and 3rd floors are no longer open to the public from today onwards? What's going on now? She tried her best to suppress the surging emotions in her heart, but her words still revealed some displeasure and anger from being deceived. Zhao stepped forward and said indifferently, yes. I did say that it's not open to the public, but... Miss Shangwan is not an outsider. Chu Liuyue's eyelashes trembled slightly. Mu Yafeng's face instantly turned pale. Master Ming, your words, Miss Shangwan is extremely talented in mystic cultivation, so we have specially hired Miss Shangwan to duplicate the mystic formation diagrams in the treasure pavilion. In this way, Miss Shangwan is naturally not an outsider. Mu Yafeng almost suspected that she was hearing things and laughed in anger. Master Ming, are you sure? I admit that she is indeed very outstanding, but with her current level, she doesn't have the qualifications to do so, right? Actually, it wasn't the first time the treasure pavilion had done such a thing. After all, many of the mystic formation diagrams here were very precious, and there were many people who wanted them. The best way was to ask someone to duplicate them. However, this matter involved a lot of things, so the treasure pavilion was usually very strict when it came to the personnel review. When Mu Yafeng wanted to obtain the mythical flame diagram, she had also taken the initiative to mention this, but she was still rejected in the end. She never expected that the treasure pavilion would directly invite Sheng Wanyu, who wasn't even a great grandmaster and didn't even have a bloodline totem. If this news were to spread, who knew how many people would be taken aback? If Miss Shangwan isn't qualified, then I'm afraid that no one in the Illusory God Palace is qualified. She chuckled. Miss Mu, allow me to remind you. When you walked the Star Road, it took you a total of 27 days to walk from the Heavenly Gate to the Grand Mystic Monarch Division's Mystic Formation area. Moreover, this doesn't include the several times you went to the Star Road to study those mystic formations separately. And Miss Shangwan went straight to the Illusory God Palace when she just arrived. She didn't even use up the remainder of your time. What position do you have now to point out that she isn't qualified? Chapter 22:14. Mu Yafeng had never thought that there would be a time when she would be humiliated like this. Even if the other party didn't say a single vulgar word, even if the other party's attitude was still polite and courteous. But those words still made her blush and extremely embarrassed. Because they were all the truth. In the Illusory God Palace, geniuses were as common as clouds. The fact that she could have her current reputation and status was enough to prove that she was indeed very outstanding. But something like talent was most afraid of comparison. If you were first, then others naturally had nothing to say. But if one day, a person suddenly appeared and easily crushed you, how would you feel? Mu Yafeng didn't like Chu Luyue from the start precisely because she knew too well what kind of shocking talent it meant to be able to complete that segment of the Star Road in just a few days. Previously, she could still comfort herself that she was just a great Mystic King teacher and there was nothing to take to heart. But now, Qi's actions were equivalent to exposing everything. It bluntly reminded her that she was indeed inferior to Qi Wuyao. Although Miss Shangwan is only a great Mystic King teacher now, I can foresee that she should be able to break through to Great Grandmaster before long. Miss Mu, you are also a Mystic Master, so you should know how important talent is to a Mystic Master. Martial artists could perhaps make up for their lack of talent through hard work, but Mystic Masters really couldn't. Without comprehension and spirit energy, even if you stared at a Xian formation diagram for 10 or 100 years, you still wouldn't be able to comprehend it. The higher the level, the more obvious the difference in talent between Mystic Masters was. This was also why they had rejected Mu Yafeng's request. There was no other reason other than they didn't think highly of her. Although Ming Shu didn't say these unspoken words, how could Mu Yafeng not understand? She slowly clenched her fists in her sleeves. Oh right, Miss Mu said you wanted some medicinal herbs. It's nothing important. Since Lord Ming is busy today, I'll come another day. Mu Yafeng gritted her teeth and tried her best to keep her expression calm. Then I won't send you off. Lord Ming smiled and looked at Chu Luyue. Please, Chu Luyue nodded slightly and walked up the stairs. Mu Yafeng turned and left. The staircase in the middle of the treasure pavilion spiraled upwards. The entire staircase was hollow and made of high-quality wood. Walking on it, one could even smell the faint fragrance of wood. Chu Luiyue walked up step by step and soon arrived at the second floor. The layout of the second floor was very different from the first floor. There were no treasures here. Instead, there were private rooms. The privacy was very strong. Miss Shangwan, the things are in the innermost room. Ming Shu also followed and led Chu Luiyue away. Chu Luiyue scanned her surroundings, but she didn't say anything as she followed him forward. Ming Shu opened the door. Chu Luiyue walked in. Although the room wasn't big, the decorations were elegant and grand. Everything that could be seen and used was of the highest quality. Ming Shu went to the bookshelf by the wall and took down a wooden box. He turned around and handed it to Chu Luiyue. The first and second volumes of the mythical flame diagram are here. You can start with the first volume. Everything you need for copying is on the table over there. Feel free to use it. Chu Luiyue looked in the direction he pointed. There were indeed many things on the table by the windowsill. She took the box, thought for a moment, and asked, "Copying Xian formations requires a lot of time and energy. Especially since my realm isn't high enough, I might not be able to complete it immediately. Miss Shangwan, you don't have to worry about this. We all know that this is a delicate job and can't be rushed. You can come again when you have time. As for the things that Little Hachi took away just now." He took out a list and quickly looked through it again. He chuckled. "You only need to copy 10 great Xian King Masters' Xian formations. Of course, if it's a great Grandmaster level Xian formation, one is more than enough." Chu Luiyue calculated for a moment. This price wasn't expensive. If it was someone else, they might find it a little troublesome. However, this wasn't a problem for her. Of course, she also wanted to take a look at the mythical flame diagram and see what kind of secrets it hid. If there's nothing else, then I won't disturb you anymore. As she spoke, she planned to leave. Wait. Chu Luiyue suddenly called out to him. I still have a presumptuous request. I wonder if it's convenient for Lord Ming to help. Just say it. If I can help, I definitely won't refuse, Ming Shu immediately said. Chu Luiyue looked at him, the corners of her lips slowly curling up. I admire Treasure Pavilion's second master very much. I wonder if I have the chance to meet him. Ming Shu didn't expect her to say this and was momentarily stunned. Second master hasn't been feeling well recently. He probably can't meet you. I know. What I mean is, when it's convenient for second master, I want to meet him and thank him in person. Ming Shu hesitated for a moment. Since Chu Luiyue had already put it this way, there seemed to be no reason to refuse. Then, I'll ask second master for instructions later. However, Miss Shangwan will probably have to wait a little longer. It's fine. Chu Luiyue had already guessed that this second master wasn't easy to meet. Ming Shu's answer was also within her expectations. I can wait. Only then did she relax and turn to leave. The room door was closed. Chu Luiyue was the only one left in the room. She stared at Ming Shu's departing figure for a while before retracting her gaze and walking over to open the wooden box. 2 books were lying quietly inside. Chu Luiyue took them out. On the surface, it didn't look much different from ordinary Xian formation diagrams. Chu Luiyue first picked up the first volume and flipped it open. What entered her eyes was a great Xian Emperor Master Xian formation. Very familiar. Chu Luiyue wasn't surprised and turned to the second page. Still very familiar. Her expression didn't change as she continued to turn to the third page and smiled. Splitting a great Xian Master Xian formation into several great Xian Emperor Master Xian formations. You really know how to have fun. Her tone was light, and there was a smile on her lips. Then, she unhurriedly flipped through the first volume. Indeed, as the rumors said, the Xian formations on this book were highly overlapping with those on the star path. Moreover, each Xian formation was marked with annotations. Some had more, some had less. However, it was extremely useful for comprehending Xian formations. Chu Luiyue leaned back in her chair and picked up the second volume. Ha! Mu Yafing left the treasure pavilion. She wanted to go back directly, but there seemed to be something stuck in her chest, making her feel suffocated and uncomfortable. The scene just now kept replaying in her mind, stabbing at her temples until they hurt. Finally, she took a deep breath, turned around, and headed in the direction of the illusory god palace. Jin Yunlai looked up from her book and frowned slightly. Mu Yafing. What is she doing here? Chapter 22:15. I don't know. I just happened to come back from Herb Mountain and bumped into her outside the palace. Xu Jing shook her head. Judging from her complexion, she doesn't look well. Even though Mu Yafing hid it well, Xu Jing had been the 8th divine emissary for so many years. She should be able to tell what she was thinking. Jin Yunlai thought for a moment, then got up and walked outside. In the entire Illusion God Palace, there were very few people who were qualified to enter and leave the Illusion God Palace freely. Even if Mu Yafing was about to finish the star path, she still needed to wait outside the Illusion God Palace for instructions. By the way, I heard that someone broke Mu Yafing's record a few days ago. Xu Jing suddenly thought of something and asked. If I remember correctly, it seems that this person's speed is faster than yours. But that was a long time ago. Moreover, divine emissaries were highly respected. Ordinary people would not casually pick someone and compare them to divine emissaries. Jin Yunlai said. That person is called Sheng Wanyu. Her talent is not bad, but unfortunately, she doesn't have a bloodline totem. Xu Jing's expression changed slightly. No totem. Then. She suddenly thought of the fairy-like woman she met at Herb Mountain. It seemed that they were together. Xu Jing's expression became a lot calmer. I see. That's indeed a pity. Jin Yunlai noticed that her tone was a little cold, but she didn't care. Arriving at the gate, Jin Yunlai saw Mu Yafing at first glance. Mu Yafing immediately went forward and bowed. Greetings, 7th Divine Emissary. Aren't you studying the Xian formation? Why are you here today? Jin Yunlai went straight to the point. Mu Yafing lowered her head slightly and said, as you said, it's indeed very difficult to crack the Xian formation. I wanted to go to the treasure pavilion to look for the second volume of the mythical flame diagram. Jin Yunlai narrowed her eyes but didn't say anything. In the Illusion God Palace, many Xian masters yearned for the mythical flame diagram, and many of them bought the first volume. However, the second half of the book was very expensive, and very few people could afford it. Mu Yafing was determined to win the star path, so it was normal that she was willing to pay such a huge price to get it. But Lord Ming refused to sell the second half of the scroll. Furthermore, he said that from today onwards, the items on the second and third floors would no longer be sold to the public. Jin Yunlai frowned. So sudden. What's the reason? In his memory, Zhenbao Pavilion rarely acted like this. Lord Ming only said that the second master is not feeling well, and this is also the first master's intention. Upon hearing those words, Jin Yunlai's expression changed. In that case, you should give up on the second half of the mythical flame diagram. Of course, I know that. Mu Yafing bit her lip. That's why I left at that time. But who would have thought that Lord Ming would actually invite Sheng Wanyu to the second floor and even invite her to copy the Xian formation diagrams from the precious treasure pavilion? What did you say? Jin Yunlai was also shocked by the news. They chose Shang Guanyu. Mu Yafeng nodded. They originally went to the Precious Treasure Pavilion to buy herbs, but for some reason, Lord Ming. Also, according to Lord Ming, as long as Shang Guanyu helps to copy the Xian formation, they can freely use the herbs and other items in the Precious Treasure Pavilion. How can that be? Before Jin Yunlai could speak, she heard Xu Jing's voice behind her. She furrowed her thin brows. They couldn't get the herbs on the Herb Mountain, so they set their sights on the Precious Treasure Pavilion. Jin Yunlai immediately frowned and asked in return. You banned them from going to the Herb Mountain? Digression, come at 6. Chapter 22:16. Xu Jing retorted, It's not that I forbade them from going to Herb Mountain, but that's the rule of Herb Mountain. They don't have a bloodline totem, and they can't take out pills of the same level to exchange. The so-called rule of Herb Mountain was set by you in the first place. Jin Yunlai's eyes flashed with displeasure. Xu Jing pursed his lips and softened his voice. Nothing can be accomplished without rules. I'm doing this for the good of the illusory god palace. Jin Yunlai retracted his gaze and stopped looking at her. They had known each other for so many years, and he was very clear about Xu Jing's intentions. Herb Mountain stretched for thousands of miles, and countless natural treasures grew there. Its value was immeasurable. Xu Jing just wanted a piece of the pie. The authority to manage Herb Mountain had been delegated to her. As long as she didn't do anything too excessive, the higher-ups wouldn't care. The rules that she had set were strictly divided into ranks, and the winner was the king, while the loser was the bandit, was vividly reflected. Although Jin Yunlai didn't like it, he had to admit that to a certain extent, her actions did indeed have a restraining and urging effect on everyone. Want the best herbs? Then you must take out the corresponding strength to exchange for them. Don't have the qualifications? Then, he would just have to increase his strength and make himself more qualified. As for those who really couldn't do it, those people shouldn't even exist in the illusory god palace. No one cared about the life and death of the weak. Although Jin Yunlai's ranking among the oracles was higher than Xu Jing's, each oracle was responsible for different things. Therefore, even if they didn't like each other, they couldn't interfere with each other's affairs. Jin Yunlai also didn't want to continue arguing with Xu Jing on this issue. She only reminded him, I know you're unhappy about this, but don't forget about Jinbao Pavilion. You can't afford to offend them. Xu Jing's expression tightened. As for Shang Guanyu, since Jinbao Pavilion has the intention to support her, then don't get into trouble. In the future, try not to find trouble with them. Don't bring trouble to yourself in the end. Do you understand? Jin Yunlai's voice became more serious as she stared at Xu Jing. Don't forget, no matter what decision they make, it's not up to us to say no. Just that sentence alone would cause a lot of trouble for the Jinbao Pavilion if it was spread to them. Xu Jing finally lowered his head under the powerful, almost tangible, scrutinizing gaze. Yes, I know. Xu Jing was embarrassed to be reprimanded in front of Mu Yafeng. She didn't stay any longer. She casually found an excuse and left in a hurry. Jin Yunlai only looked at Mu Yafeng after her figure disappeared. You heard what I said just now. His words were filled with undisguised warnings and admonitions. Mu Yafeng was shocked and hurriedly said, Yes, Yafeng will keep that in mind. As she spoke, she lowered her eyes. Her heart was in a mess. If he had known that the treasure pavilion had a powerful background, even the oracle would not have dared to offend them. From the looks of it, the oracle was indeed unwilling to go against the treasure pavilion. He was even willing to take the initiative to avoid them. I'm just curious. I don't know why the treasure pavilion chose her, Mu Yafeng said softly and looked up at Jin Yunlai. Shang Guanyu's talent is indeed outstanding. Jin Yunlai said lightly. Although she doesn't have a bloodline totem and can't ascend to heaven and become a god, the Treasure Pavilion thinks highly of her. It's understandable that they want to copy some Xian formations while she's still in the illusory god palace. However, this is their business. You don't have to worry too much about it. Since you can't get the mythical flame diagram, you can go back and study it. It's the same. The star path is long and countless Xian formations are gathered. It's not easy to completely comprehend it. To Mu Yafeng, it was just a matter of time. Mu Yafeng understood Jin Yunlai very well. She knew that this was his limit. There was no need to continue asking, so she tactfully agreed and turned to leave. Jin Yunlai turned and returned to the illusory god palace. As he walked, he frowned slightly. In fact, what he said to persuade Xu Jing and Mu Yafeng just now couldn't convince himself. He also felt that the Treasure Pavilion's decision was very strange. But, he probably wouldn't have the chance to ask this answer. Chu Luyue had to leave the illusory god palace in the end. Chu Luyue spent 4 hours carefully reading the 2 volumes of the mythical flame diagram. To be precise, she finished reviewing. She put down the 2 volumes and rubbed her forehead. Now, she was sure that Debao and the other 2 had been to the illusory god palace before. Or maybe they had left the illusory god palace. In short, she hadn't seen them yet, so she couldn't be sure. However, she wasn't so eager to verify this point now. Ever since she found out that Debao had lied to her that those great Grandmaster Xian formations were just ordinary Xian formations, she had become numb to them. People's hearts are really not what they used to be. After a long time, she finally spat out a sentence weakly. After resting for a while, she put away these chaotic thoughts and started copying the Xian formations from the first volume. The first volume was relatively simpler and easier to copy. Chu Luyue finished copying the first 10 Xian formations and stayed in the room to regulate her breathing and cultivate. She stayed for a while longer before getting up to leave. Almost at the same time she went out, Ho came out from the room next door. "Miss Shangwan, you're done copying." Chu Luyue wasn't surprised that he knew what she was doing. After all, this was his territory. She nodded and handed over the brand new book in her hand. "The 10 Xian formations are all here. Please review them, Lord Ming." Ho took it with a smile. With Miss Shangwan's ability, this one naturally believes in it. Originally, he wanted to say that there was no need to look, but he felt that it would be too much. In the end, he looked through it carefully. After about 15 minutes, he closed the book and praised from the bottom of his heart. "Miss Shangwan is really amazing. You actually copied all 10 Xian formations perfectly in such a short time." Chu Liyue's lips curled up slightly. "It's good that Lord Ming is satisfied. Then I'll take my leave first." Although she could continue, there was no hurry. She could take it slowly. Besides, the more she came here, the more she would see the second master. And even, the first master. "I'll send you off," Ming Shu said hurriedly. Chu Luyue declined with a smile and finally left alone. After she left, Ho stood at the same spot for a while before turning into another room. "Second master, she's already gone." Yen Gu patted his chest. "I know." Ming Shu looked at the book in his hand in amazement and sighed. "This Miss Shangwan is really amazing." Yen Gu clicked his tongue. "She's the apple of our first master's eye. Of course she's different." Chapter 22:17. Ming Shu was shocked and almost threw the thing in his hand away. Second master, you mean?" Previously, he only heard from Yen Gu that this person had an extraordinary identity and must be treated well. Who knew? Yen Gu glanced at him. "Don't tell me you kept calling that person Miss Shangwan." Yes. Is Is there a problem? Zhao's voice was trembling slightly. He had already vaguely sensed something. Yan Ge looked sympathetic. It's okay, it's okay. Of course, it's okay to call her that outside. Just remember to call her Madam when you're with the first master. Zhao. Also, if Mu Yafeng oversteps her boundaries in the future, don't be polite. Just send her away. Yan Ge crossed his legs and narrowed his eyes. As for whether to send her out or to hell, it's up to you. What if you dirty Madam's eyes and ears? Zhao, he swallowed his saliva and suddenly felt that the book in his hand seemed to weigh 1,000 pounds. After a while, he forced himself to speak. But Mu Yafeng is highly valued by the seventh oracle. If I overstep my boundaries, I'm afraid it's not appropriate, right? Sending her to hell, isn't it too hasty? Yan Ge leisurely crossed his arms. Jin Yunlai dares to come and make trouble. Chu Luiyue came out of the treasure pavilion and did not go back directly. Instead, she went to the Star Road again. At this time, she was standing in the middle of the Star Road. It stretched all the way down to the Divine Gate. It stretched all the way up to the palace of the illusory god. The Star Road was shining brightly. At a glance, there were a few scattered figures on the Star Road. They seemed to be comprehending the Xian formations on the Star Road. Chu Luiyue walked closer and looked down. This was the area of the Great Master's Xian formations. She glanced at the nearest Xian formations and sighed in her heart. She could not help but look back at the palace of the illusory god. If she did not come here, she would never have thought that the pavilion in the sky that appeared in the Red Moon Desert would appear in such a high position in front of her. She wondered if it was really the same as the illusion from before. Stop looking. You won't have a chance to enter it. A sarcastic voice came from behind. Chu Luiyue turned around and saw that it was Qing Pei. Compared to before, his complexion was rosy, his spirit was glowing, and his aura was much stronger. It was clear that he had benefited a lot since entering the illusory god palace. Chu Luiyue smiled. I didn't expect Senior Qing Pei to be so concerned about me. Qing Pei felt as if his punch had landed on cotton. He immediately let out a sigh of relief and sneered. I'm just feeling sorry for Master Yu. In the past, in the Divine Ruins world, Lord Yu's talent was outstanding, and there was no one in the limelight who could compete with him. But now that I've arrived here, I'm being neglected. I even have to worry about being chased out at all times. Master Yu, if I were you, I wouldn't have the face to continue staying here. Chu Luiyue smiled faintly. If Senior Qing Pei really thinks that way, then it's the same for you to leave on my behalf. Qing Pei was speechless. He realized that no matter what he said, it didn't seem to have any effect on Chu Luiyue. Her mental fortitude was extremely strong. Even if the words were so unpleasant to hear, she could still laugh. He snorted. Forget it, I still have something important to do. I'm not as free as Master Yu. With that, he tapped the ground with the tip of his foot and flew into the distance. Ah, you. Dumpling's voice suddenly sounded in her heart. Ah, you. Follow him. He has the smell of Grandpa Patriarch. Chu Luiyue was shocked and immediately asked, Are you sure? Is it really Senior Yi Zhao's aura? I'm sure. It must be. Although it's very faint, it's definitely him. Dumpling urged anxiously. Chu Luiyue looked up. Qing Pei's figure was already far away, as if he was running in a certain direction. That's the lightning pool. Chu Luiyue frowned slightly and muttered uncertainly. She knew where Qing Pei lived. He definitely wasn't going back to his own place this time. In the distant sky, dark clouds overlapped and a large shadow shrouded the sky. It was indeed the direction of the lightning pool. She didn't have time to think. She immediately moved and followed him. Qingpei quickly realized that there was someone behind him. He unintentionally turned around to take a look. Instantly, his expression turned ugly and he asked warily, "Why are you following me? Don't tell me you want to fight because of what happened before." Chu Luiyue looked at him without batting an eyelid and smiled faintly. "The Illusion God Palace is so big. Other than the Illusion God Palace, where else can I not go? Senior Qingpei, aren't you being a little too nosy?" Qingpei gritted his teeth. Chu Luiyue was clearly following him, but she refused to admit it. However, in his opinion, Chu Luiyue had always been sharp-tongued. It was meaningless to argue with her. He laughed disdainfully. "Looks like you're also heading for the lightning pool. But I don't mind telling you that those without a bloodline totem are just wasting their energy. It's better for you to go back as soon as possible. Otherwise, when you reach there, you won't be able to reap any benefits and you'll lose all your face. By then, it'll be too late to regret." Lightning pool. Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat. Looks like her previous guess was right. Qingpei was heading for the lightning pool. Previously, Qingpei didn't have the aura of Senior Yi Zhao. Now that he suddenly had it, it was very likely that he accidentally got it. Looking at it now, it probably had something to do with the lightning pool. Chu Luiyue made a prompt decision and continued towards the lightning pool. Qingpei originally thought that Chu Luiyue would be moved after hearing those words. However, he didn't expect her to act as if she was provoked by something and quickly headed in that direction. "You really won't turn back until you hit the southern wall. You won't cry until you see the coffin." When she reached the lightning pool, she would know how stupid her decision was. Qingpei smiled coldly and immediately followed. The lightning pool was quite a distance away from the star path. The closer they got, the more Chu Luiyue realized that there were more people heading towards the lightning pool. She frowned slightly. Didn't Jin Yunlai say that the lightning pool was a place to refine divine weapons? Why were so many people heading in that direction? One had to know that the number of weapon refiners was even fewer than the number of celestial physicians. Moreover, that Qingpei was just an ordinary god, but he seemed to be very interested in the lightning pool. It was as if there was something amazing there. "Ah, you. That person just now also had the smell of Grandpa Leader. And this." Dumpling's voice fell into her ears. Chu Luiyue's brows furrowed even more. Finally, she arrived at the lightning pool. She floated in mid-air and looked ahead. She immediately sucked in a breath of cold air. It was a boundless sea of lightning, with surging waves that towered to the heavens. Countless Tianlei were gathered in it. Chapter 22:18. Silver intertwined, and there seemed to be golden light in the depths. It was brilliant. This was a real pool of lightning. The tens of thousands of heavenly lightning bolts that Tang Ku had accumulated back then were nothing compared to this. They couldn't even be compared to this. Above the lightning pool, dark clouds gathered, and it was gloomy. In the vast world, half of it was gloomy, while the other half was bright. It was a stark contrast. Even though she was still some distance away from the lightning pool, she could still clearly feel the boundless pressure that was surging within it. Suddenly, she fixed her gaze and saw a man trying to walk towards the lightning pool. He was bathed in lightning and was dazzling. Around him, silver snake-like Tianlei flickered. Needless to say, this process was extremely torturous. However, he continued to walk deeper in, towards the place where there were more heavenly lightning and more powerful lightning bolts. At the same time, Chu Luiyue also realized that the aura on his body seemed to be gradually strengthening. "This is tempering the power in his body," she muttered uncertainly. "Master Yu. Why are you here?" A familiar voice sounded. Chu Luiyue turned her head. Senior Song Qing. Although Song Qing was not familiar with her, there was no big conflict between them. Hence, Chu Luiyue's attitude was still very polite. Song Qing raised his hand and pointed at the lightning pool. Other than those who had already entered the lightning pool, there were also some people standing by the shore, eager to try. It seems that Master Yu really does not know. This lightning pool can not only refine the divine power in one's body, but it can also temper the divine body. That is why so many people are here. Chu Luiyue was shocked. The divine body can also be tempered? In the world of God, it was naturally impossible. However, it is not a problem here. Song Qing stroked his beard. Within that lightning pool, there is an immeasurable amount of heavenly lightning accumulated. Not only can it be used to refine divine weapons, but it can also temper the divine body and increase the power of the cultivator. Not long after we arrived here, we heard about this matter. Many of us have even tried it and it is indeed quite effective. I guess Master Yu has been busy with the star path, so you found out a little late. As he spoke, he thought of something and glanced at Chu Luiyue. Oh right, I heard that Master Yu's divine body is formed from the God-destroying tribulation. You are already very strong. I don't think you need to enter the lightning pool and suffer more. Chu Luiyue's eyes flickered. In that case, Senior Qing Pei has also gone in before. Song Qing nodded. Although he only stayed at the edge for 2 hours, the effect was outstanding. Chu Luiyue's lips curled up slightly. No wonder I saw Senior Qing Pei's strength increase so much in such a short period of time. So this is the reason. Qing Pei, who was about to rush over, heard their conversation and snorted. What? Master Yu also wants to go over and take a look. But I advise you to give up on this idea. The fourth divine messenger had already said that the Tianlei force in the lightning pool was not used to refine one's divine power or divine body. Instead, it was used to stimulate the bloodline power in one's body and help the cultivator break through the shackles and ascend to the heavens. I think you don't need to do that, right? Bloodline power. This sounded similar to how Dumpling had used the Tianlei force in the myriad wine spring to break through to the crimson gold celestial phoenix. However, the lightning pool was stimulating the bloodline power of the human race. And she, coincidentally, did not. She lowered her eyes slightly and did not get angry at Qing Pei's words. Instead, she placed her attention elsewhere. The fourth divine messenger. You've already met him. Song Qing nodded and explained, he came once a few days ago. But he only showed his face once and quickly left. Another divine messenger. Everything in the illusory god palace seemed to be managed by the divine messengers. She did not know how many divine messengers there were, but all of them were extremely mysterious and powerful. Until now, other than the seventh divine messenger, Jin Yunlai, she had not seen any other divine messengers. Even Jin Yunlai had only seen her once at the very beginning. Chu Luiyue thanked him and then moved towards the shore of the lightning pool. Qing Pei's brows were tightly knitted together. Soon after, he revealed a somewhat mocking smile. You really don't want to give up? Song Qing frowned. Qing Pei, we all came up together. Why do you have to go against Master Yu? I'm going against her. Qing Pei seemed to have heard a joke. Elder Song, you must have seen what happened that day, right? But she did not do anything wrong. After crossing the sea and crossing the bridge, everyone has to rely on their own abilities. Not only your subordinates, but many of the other aristocratic families and clans were also forced to give up. Speaking of which, we are not close to her. If she didn't help, it would have been. Song Qing's words caused Qing Pei's face to darken. Elder Song, I respectfully address you as Elder Song because of our past relationship. But it's best if you don't interfere in the matters between me and her. Actually, how could he not understand Song Qing's words? The reason why he had such a bad relationship with Chu Luiyue was mainly because he felt embarrassed that he had been rejected in public when he asked for her help. Song Qing sighed disapprovingly in his heart. Qing Pei was extremely prideful. He probably would not let this matter go. Besides, I haven't done anything up until now. She was the one who wanted to go to the lightning pool. But it was good to let her try. It would be the most painful if she found out that she was still unable to break through after experiencing the pain of Tianlei. Thinking of this, Qing Pei's mood improved. He quickly followed behind, waiting to watch a good show. Song Qing looked at the backs of the two people and shook his head. Chu Luiyue quickly arrived at the shore of the lightning pool. There were already a few dozen people standing here. Hearing the commotion, some of them turned around curiously. Some of them recognized her, some of them didn't. However, when they saw the letter on her waist, they quickly confirmed her identity. Chu Luiyue ignored those gazes as she went to a reef and stared at the rumbling sea of lightning in front of her. Dumpling, do you feel something? Yes. It's Grandpa Clan Leader's aura. He's in the lightning pool. Dumpling's voice was filled with anxiety and worry. But, this aura is too scattered. I can't be sure of Grandpa Clan Leader's exact location. Chu Luiyue frowned slightly. If that was the case, it would be troublesome. The lightning pool was boundless. It was easy to imagine how difficult it would be to find someone here. If you go in, can you find him? I don't know. Dumpling's voice was much softer. I want to go in and take a look. Can I? She was a crimson gold heavenly phoenix. Naturally, she was not afraid of these Tianlei. Chu Luiyue thought for a moment. I'll take you there. Chapter 22:19. Ever since the incident in the Red Moon Desert, Chu Luiyue was much more vigilant. Especially when it came to Dumpling. Yi Zhao was missing, and it was very likely that he was trapped in this lightning pool and could not get out. The entire Crimson Gold Celestial Phoenix clan had been forcefully sealed. Chu Luiyue believed that Yi Zhao had put in a lot of effort. He had done so much because he did not want his clansmen to suffer and suffer. Tuanzi was probably one of them. The Illusion God Palace was right behind her. Chu Luiyue did not dare to guarantee that there would not be any accidents. She did not dare to let Dumpling go to the lightning pool alone. She had to go with her. Thinking of this, she did not hesitate and went straight ahead. Then, she stepped into the lightning pool. Splash! The surrounding heavenly thunders moved as soon as they heard the commotion and quickly gathered in this direction. Everyone had been sizing her up intentionally or unintentionally. When they saw her enter the lightning pool so easily, they were all stunned. After a short silence, all sorts of discussions broke out. That's Shang Wanyu. She actually went into the lightning pool just like that. Isn't she a little too bold? I heard that she's a venerable god expert, and her divine body is very strong. She might be able to withstand it for a while, but she doesn't have a bloodline totem, right? Then coming to the lightning pool is just torture. Why? Pfft, who knows what she's thinking? She gave up on the star path and came to the lightning pool. Maybe she wants to experience the various affairs of the Illusion God Palace in the limited time she has. This way, when she leaves, she won't have any regrets. Splash! Chu Luiyue's legs sank into the lightning pool. Several bolts of heavenly lightning gathered around her and soon enveloped most of her body. However, probably because she was still at the edge, the power contained in the Tianlei did not pose any threat to her. She took a deep breath and walked forward. In the room, Tsin half leaned on the chair. On the table in front of him, there were dozens of bottles and jars. Is it all here? he asked faintly. Little Hachi, with 2 dark circles under her eyes, fell softly on the small couch next to her. They're all here. Tsuni raised his hand, picked up one of the jade bottles, and opened it to take a look. A rich medicinal fragrance wafted out from within. He raised his brows slightly. It's better than last time. It was rare for little Hachi to hear a compliment from him. She struggled to raise her head with a sad expression. Right? If he still hasn't improved, it would be a waste of the dark circles under his eyes that he worked so hard to get. Tsuni nodded. Thank you, Master, for buying those medicinal herbs for you. They are all of excellent quality. Little Hachi pursed her red lips and whispered, Don't worry. Although that's part of the reason, I'm still working very hard. Recently, her alchemy skills had simply skyrocketed. Even she herself was on the verge of tears. Tsuni looked up slightly. Do you have anything to do with the word hard work? Little Hachi was speechless. If you worked hard enough, you wouldn't still be refining these things now. Tsuni's voice was calm. It didn't sound like a criticism, but a statement of fact. But it was precisely this that was even more stimulating. Little Hachi's eyes were brimming with tears. Big brother. You're still not satisfied with this. Not to mention that these were all Grand Physician level pills. The more important thing was, she didn't just refine 1 or 2 pills. She refined dozens or even hundreds of pills together. If this news were to spread, who knew how many jaws would drop from shock? Big brother was actually still disdainful. Tsuni suddenly looked at Hua Shuangshuang, who was sitting beside him. Liang He is the youngest Grand Physician in the Illusion God Palace. Hua Shuangshuang nodded. Yes. Otherwise, he wouldn't have brought so many medicinal herbs over every day. Although they didn't ask for them, they had always been there. With a casual glance, they were all valuable items. Little Hachi's mouth twitched. Big brother, are you serious? Did he mean that he wanted her to break through to Grand Physician as soon as possible? Tsuni put away all the pills on the table. It's up to you whether you're willing or not. Little Eight grumbled and lay back down on the bed. Hua Shuangshuang raised her eyebrows and looked at Tsuni and Little Hachi. Big brother said whether you're willing or not if you can. The key was Little Hachi's reaction. Right at this moment, Tsuni suddenly sensed something and looked outside. His indifferent and narrow eyes narrowed slightly. Calculating the time, Master should be back from the treasure pavilion, right? Hua Shuangshuang was stunned. Speaking of which, it's been a long time. Why don't I go and take a look? No need. Tsuni shook his head. Master should have gone to the lightning pool. She will be back soon. Hearing him say this, Hua Shuangshuang immediately relaxed. Tsuni paused and asked again. Little Hachi, is Shijing still in Tianling? Little Hachi turned over and said lazily. Should be. Didn't he always follow you, big brother? Later, Master went to the Divine Ruins world and left Shijing to protect Shengguanyu at the Tianling dynasty. Why are you asking this? Tsuni tapped his finger on the table. Let him come back. There was already someone else protecting Shengguanyu, and the Tianling dynasty was basically stable. There was no point in letting Shijing stay there. Now. Little Hachi and Hua Shuangshuang were both shocked. Isn't this too sudden? Big brother, are you going to summon him to the Illusion God Palace? Tsuni could contact the 13th guard. But at this time. Yes. Tsuni nodded. The heavenly gate is still open. Let him come over directly. Little Hachi blinked. But I don't know how strong fourth brother is now. What if he can't cross that sea and get on that bridge? Tsuni's voice was calm. He's not that weak. Hua Shuangshuang coughed. Little Hachi's face darkened. She felt offended. In fact, Tsinyi was right. Ever since the heavenly gate opened, there were indeed people trying to come up. Although there were only a few who succeeded, everyone still went forward dauntlessly, unwilling to give up. Even if there was only a tiny bit of hope, they were willing to give it a try. When Chang Wanzhou woke up, the room was quiet. He sat up and rubbed his temples, feeling as if he had slept for a long time. But fortunately, his head didn't hurt anymore. Recently, he often had headaches, and then unknowingly fell asleep. After coming to the Illusion God Palace, this feeling became more and more obvious. He looked down at Tuan Xanz on his waist. Everything was normal. After thinking for a while, he got up and walked outside. When he came to the courtyard, only Tsinyi was there. He greeted him and walked out of the door. "Where are you going?" Tsinyi suddenly asked. Chang Wanzhou looked back. His soft golden hair covered his delicate eyebrows, and the expression in his eyes couldn't be seen clearly. He spoke softly and smoothly. "Back to the Illusion God Palace." Chapter 22:20. There was a moment of silence in the courtyard. Tsinyi stared at him and said in a deep voice, "What did you just say?" Chang Wanzhou's pupils constricted. Only then did he come back to his senses. A hint of confusion and nervousness appeared on his exquisite and beautiful face. "What did I say?" Of course, he knew what he had said. He had heard it clearly. However, even he didn't know why he would give such an answer. He slowly tightened his grip on the door. For a moment, his heart was in chaos. Tsinyi paused and said, "Go back and rest for a while." Chang Wanzhou pursed his lips, nodded, and walked back. When he reached the door, he hesitated for a moment. "I want to go out for a walk." Tsinyi looked up at him. Chang Wanzhou took a deep breath. "Just take a look around the Illusion God Palace." After a moment, Tsinyi finally nodded. "You know very well where you can go and where you can't." Chang Wanzhou heaved a sigh of relief. "Thank you." Just as the words were about to come out of his mouth, he suddenly came to his senses. Actually, he didn't know what to say after that, but it was as if the answer came out of his subconscious. He looked at Tsinyi nervously. Seeing that Tsinyi's expression was calm as if he didn't care, he thanked him again and turned to leave. The door was opened and closed. "Return all the things outside to Lianghe," Tsinyi said without looking up. 37 kilometers southeast, Unit 8 on Tongwuan Street. Although no one would dare to take them from the door, they would still be a hindrance. Chang Wanzhou made a sound of acknowledgement before leaving. After a moment, Hua Shuangshuang walked out of the house and asked curiously, "Big brother, how do you know where Lianghe lives?" During this period of time, Big brother didn't seem to have left the house, right? Tsinyi glanced at her. "He's been coming back to the same place every day." "What's so hard to guess?" Hua Shuangshuang laughed. "Big brother, actually, I think that Lianghe is not bad. Although he looks average, he's young and talented. He treats little Hachi well." For so many years, little Hachi's pursuers were as numerous as carps crossing the river, but she had never looked at any of them. She liked to be lively, but she was never reluctant to leave. She was carefree and unrestrained. Tsinyi said calmly. "If everyone was as careless as you, you wouldn't even know when little Hachi was kidnapped." Hua Shuangshuang rubbed her nose. "It's just a joke. Who wants to kidnap me?" Hearing her name, little Hachi walked over seductively with a basket of carefully selected herbs. "Big brother, second brother, aren't you looking down on people too much? How could I have been abducted by someone else? On the other hand, if I'm in a good mood, I might just kidnap a few sons-in-law for you to see." Hua Shuangshuang was speechless. That's not a son-in-law. Oh, that's brother-in-law. Sigh, it's the same. Xin Yi's heart skipped a beat as he glanced at her. All right. Little Hachi staggered. Big brother, I was just joking. Are you serious? Xin Yi smiled meaningfully. 13th you, there's no reason for you to marry into another family. It's not a bad idea to find someone to marry into your family. Peach Blossom Cove. Yenqing opened a letter. After quickly reading it, he moved his finger and burned the letter completely. Pass down master's orders. Everyone in Yuntian Tower is to wait for orders and is not to head to Heaven's Gate. One of the black-armored soldiers standing in front of him immediately replied, Yes, sir. Yes. He was about to turn and leave when he suddenly paused and asked hesitantly. Lord Yenqing, you're not going either. Digression, come at 6. Chapter 22-21. Yenqing's handsome face was calm. I'm not going. There was no need for that for now. After all, Umo and the others were here. Also, someone needed to watch over the Peach Blossom dock. Yes. Seeing Yenqing's firm attitude, the soldier didn't ask any more questions and turned to leave. Only Yenqing was left in the room. He thought for a while and walked out of the door. Before he could walk out of the courtyard, he bumped into Tang Ku, who had specially come. Yenqing bowed. Senior Tang Ku, what's the matter? Tang Ku chuckled. It's nothing urgent. It's just that I need some herbs for refining recently. Yenqing paused. Do you have a list? Tang Ku casually handed it over. Yes, it's all here. Yenqing, he took it with both hands and put it away without looking at it. I'll send it to you as soon as possible. Tang Ku rubbed her hands. Hee, this is really troublesome. In the past, it wouldn't have been easy to get these things from Yen Gu. But now, he was refining for Chu Luyue. With Her Highness's permission, Yen Gu didn't dare to refuse. Yenqing's expression was still cold. It's my duty to begin with. If Senior Tang Ku doesn't have anything else, I'll take my leave. Tang Ku chuckled. Go ahead, go ahead. Recently, Yenqing had been handling a lot of things in the Peach Blossom dock. He was indeed very busy. Yenqing nodded slightly and left. Looking at his back, Tang Ku clicked her tongue and couldn't help but murmur. After so many years, his temper hasn't changed at all. Illusory God Palace, Lightning Pool. Chu Luyue walked forward slowly and firmly. Dazzling silver light surrounded her, and countless bolts of lightning entered her body, refining the divine power in her body bit by bit. The deeper they went, the stronger the power of the mist in Tianlei became. However, Tianlei didn't pose much of a threat to her, probably because her divine body was special. Overall, it was neither painful nor itchy. After walking for a while, she still couldn't detect Yi Zhao's aura. She couldn't help but ask in her heart, Dumpling, did you notice anything? Dumpling shook her head. Not yet. This lightning pool seems to have dispersed Grandpa Patriarch's aura. For now, I can only feel that the aura in the inner part of the lightning pool seems to be thicker. Chu Luyue replied with a but he wasn't surprised. If it was really that easy to find Yi Zhao, then there would be a problem. Then let's continue to look inside. Why is she still going inside? The deeper we go, the more powerful Tianlei becomes. Even I don't dare to go there. Isn't she a little too bold? Why do I feel like the Tianlei doesn't pose any threat to her? I heard that she's already a god at such a young age and is very talented. But there's no need for this, right? I heard that Shengguan Yu's divine body came from the god Annihilation Tribulation. She can even withstand the god annihilation tribulation, so this shouldn't be a problem, right? However, I'm still more curious. How far can she go? As Chu Luyue went deeper into the lightning pool, more and more people turned their attention to her. Qing Pei, who was refining his divine body at the edge of the lightning pool, opened his eyes impatiently when he heard this. Seeing that the figure was still going toward the lightning, he clenched his fists. Anger and unwillingness surged in his heart. Everyone knew that the deepest part of the lightning pool contained the strongest power and pressure. That was because other than the silver Tianlei, there was also the golden Tianlei. If one could reach that place and undergo the best Tianlei refinement, the benefits would be immeasurable. Which cultivator in the illusory god palace didn't want to go there? Of course, he was no exception. However, everyone had their own limits. And this was his limit. If he went any further, he couldn't guarantee that he would be able to return in one piece. In comparison, Chu Luyue easily surpassed the limits that most people could reach, and she was still moving forward. How could they not be jealous and envious? Qing Pei felt especially uncomfortable. Forget it. No matter how talented she is, without a bloodline totem, it's useless. Thinking of this, he finally felt a little better. Ah, you. She seems to be down there. After about an hour, Dumpling's excited voice sounded again. An idea popped up in Chu Luyue's mind, and she immediately went down. Plop, her figure instantly disappeared from the lightning pool. Everyone only saw a flash of lightning. In a moment, Chu Luyue's figure had completely disappeared from their sight. Where is she? Why did she suddenly disappear? Could it be that something has happened? The depths of the lightning pool are dangerous. Could it be that she couldn't hold on and fell down? But I didn't hear her call for help. For a moment, everyone had different opinions. Song Qing stared at the lightning pool and waited for a while. Seeing that Chu Luyue still hadn't come up, he couldn't help but frown. The situation isn't right. Should we report to the fourth divine emissary? When everyone heard him say this, they looked at each other. Actually, it wasn't difficult to ask the fourth divine emissary, but, this matter, who was willing to do it? Qing Pei had just come out of the lightning pool. When he heard this, he couldn't help but snort. Old song, this lightning pool has always been free to enter and leave. Life and death is one's own responsibility. Since she wants to go there, she has to pay the price for her choice. I heard that in the past, many people have died in this lightning pool. I've never heard of the fourth divine emissary taking the initiative to save anyone. Even if you report it now, I'm afraid it'll be futile. Everyone looked at each other and fell silent. Although Qing Pei's words were unpleasant, they were the truth. No matter how one looked at it, the fourth divine emissary, and even the people present, had no obligation to help. Song Qing was conflicted for a moment and could only give up. It wasn't that he had a good relationship with Chu Luyue, but he felt that she was still young. To be able to reach this step today, her talent was indeed extraordinary. It wasn't easy. Song Qing admired her a little. But now that they were in the illusory god palace, it was already very difficult for everyone to take care of themselves, let alone others. He could only hope that she could safely escape. Qing Pei laughed as a cold light flashed in his eyes. If she could die here today, it would save him a lot of effort. Chu Luyue dove down. Because the surroundings were filled with moving silver Tianlei, it wasn't dark down there. Instead, it was bright. At a glance, she couldn't see the end. She followed Dumpling's direction and continued forward. After an unknown period of time, a golden light flashed not far in front of her. Chapter 22-22. Chu Luyue stopped in her tracks and looked in front. When she saw the scene before her, she held her breath. In front of her, behind the countless silver tianlei, a golden light flashed and shone brightly. Countless golden heavenly lightning intertwined with one another and formed a cluster. That huge ball of golden light existed silently in the depths of the lightning pool. Heavy. Powerful. Mysterious. This is, Chu Liyue widened her eyes slightly. She almost thought that she was hallucinating. It was not that she had never seen golden tianlei before. Back when she helped Lan Shao reconstruct his divine body, she even helped to trigger a few. However, the ones before her were uncountable. She stood there and seemed to be extremely small. Ah, you. Grandpa clan leader seems to be inside. Dumpling's voice woke her up. She frowned, and her heart skipped a beat. You're saying that inside the golden tianlei? Yes, yes. Since they were already here, Dumpling's intuition should not be wrong. However, if Yi Zhao was really trapped in that ball of golden tianlei, things would be troublesome. Chu Liyue took a deep breath. She braced herself and walked forward cautiously. With every step she took, the pressure on her body became even heavier. Her shoulders seemed to be carrying a heavy mountain, and her legs seemed to be filled with lead. The silver tianlei swam around her body. She started to feel pain all over her body. With a thought, she summoned her divine body. The beautiful soft armor covered her body, and finally isolated her from the tianlei. Although it could not completely cancel out the power of the tianlei, it could at least make her feel more relaxed. As the distance between her and the ball of golden lightning decreased, she gradually sensed a familiar aura. It was indeed the same as Yi Zhao's aura. She gritted her teeth and continued forward. At the same time, at the heavenly gate, a burly man finally walked over from the bridge. His skin was dark, and he looked strong. His arms were muscular, and there was a hammer hanging from his waist. Phew, we're finally here. Mitsui wiped the sweat off his forehead and let out a long sigh of relief. Ever since he received the news from his elder brother, he immediately rushed over without stopping. It had been a torturous journey. Fortunately, it seemed that he was not too late. He looked up at the divine gate in front of him and sighed. Right at this moment, a figure slowly walked over. Mitsui retracted his gaze and looked at the man. Their gazes met for a moment. Jin Yunlai walked to the gate of heaven and stood in front of Mitsui. I am the seventh divine envoy of the illusion god palace, Jin Yunlai. Shijing was stunned for a moment before he cupped his fist and bowed. So it's the seventh divine emissary. Sorry for the disrespect. You came alone. Jin Yunlai looked behind him and asked curiously. Mitsui nodded. That's right. Is there a problem? Jin Yunlai shook her head. It's nothing. However, when the gate of heaven opens, most people come in groups, and very few come alone. Mitsui chuckled and scratched his head. Oh, this? Actually, my master and the others have already arrived. I was delayed by some matters, so I came a little late. Jin Yunlai nodded. To be able to come alone, he must have some ability. He took out the book. Name. Mitsui. Then, the golden feather appeared in Jin Yunlai's hand. He raised his hand and the feather swept across Mitsui's forehead. It was blank. Jin Yunlai's expression changed slightly. Then, he seemed to have suddenly thought of something. Your master is Sheng Wanyu. Mitsui smiled. That's right. It seems that the seventh divine envoy has already met my master. Jin Yunlai paused for a moment, and her expression was cold. I am fully in charge of the Gate of Heaven's audit. Mitsui noticed that her mood seemed to have become much colder in an instant, and he felt a little strange. Jin Yunlai looked at him again. You are stronger than the previous two. Mitsui had already broken through to God. Although he did not have a bloodline totem, compared to Hua Shuang and Little Hachi, it was not so difficult to accept. Then, he handed over the tongue-shaped ball. Go in. He did not explain much to Mitsui. Seeing that Jin Yunlai's attitude was a little strange, Mitsui wanted to ask more, but seeing that she did not seem to have any intention of speaking, he did not continue to ask. After receiving the tongue-shaped ball, he thanked Jin Yunlai and stepped into the gate of heaven. Chu Luiyue stopped. At this moment, she had already arrived in front of the huge golden Tianlei. The silver Tianlei was suppressed and did not approach here. There was a circle of empty space around her. At this moment, she was standing here. The powerful pressure almost made her breathless, and the blood in her body seemed to have stopped flowing. All the divine power in her body was suppressed by an unprecedented level of suppression. She knew very well how dangerous this place was. Now, as long as she raised her hand, she would be able to touch the ball of light. The bright light was almost blinding, and it was difficult to look directly at it. Chu Luiyue endured the piercing pain in her eyes and stretched out her hand. Woo woo, a sharp buzz could be heard all of a sudden. Several bolts of golden heavenly thunder instantly changed their direction and pierced straight at him like extremely sharp blades. In an instant, Chu Luiyue was enveloped. A chill suddenly rose from the bottom of her heart. Chu Luiyue knew that even if she could trigger the golden Tianlei, the simultaneous attack of almost 100 golden Tianlei was not something she could withstand. She didn't even think about it and wanted to retreat. However, the surrounding space had been completely controlled by these Tianlei, and there was no way she could escape at all. Chi! The golden Tianlei at the front had reached between her eyebrows in an instant. Chu Luiyue's heart suddenly sank. However, at this moment, a buzzing sound came from her body. In the next moment, the golden heavenly lightning came to a stop. A few strands of hair on her forehead were cut off by the aftershock and quietly fell to the ground. A strange totem flashed between her eyebrows. An invisible and vast pressure spread out from her body. Chu Luiyue's heart beat quickly, and she only felt that the area between her eyebrows was boiling hot. She slowly raised her hand and touched the area between her eyebrows. The golden Tianlei suddenly retreated a little, and then timidly stuck to the back of her hand and rubbed against it. Chapter 22-23. Chu Luiyue was taken aback. The golden Tianlei gently brushed past the back of her hand with a warm warmth. It was careful, but there was an indescribable longing. Then, the surrounding golden Tianlei also rushed to her and tapped on her arm and shoulder. The fierce pressure from before completely dissipated at this moment, replaced by undisguised flattery and intimacy. Chu Luiyue blinked. This situation, you. They seem to know you. Dumpling's curious voice came from the bottom of her heart. Have you been here before? Chu Luiyue's brows moved slightly. Of course not. Bang! Something bumped into her waist from behind, neither too lightly nor too heavily. She looked back and found that a few golden Tianlei had run behind her. One of them was floating back. It was obviously the one that bumped into her just now. Actually, it didn't hurt, but Chu Luiyue felt the dissatisfaction hidden in it. Dissatisfaction. Chu Luiyue raised her eyebrows. She said she hadn't been here before, but why did the golden Tianlei seem to be unhappy? But she was telling the truth. The illusion god palace opened the gate of heaven once every 10,000 years. How could she have been here before? Tuanzi murmured to herself, "Ah, you seem to have angered them, Chu Luiyue." She raised her hand silently. Then, no matter what, we've met today, haven't we? Everyone, can I trouble you to move aside? She still wanted to see the situation inside. Swoosh. Swoosh. As soon as she finished speaking, the golden lightning in front of her immediately flew to the side, making a path in the middle. Dumpling exclaimed, so obedient. "Ah, why don't you take them as your underlings? I'm so envious." Chu Luyue, his dumpling was clearly a cute and adorable girl. Why was she always thinking about becoming a big sister and taking in underlings? For a moment, Chu Luyue wondered if he had led his child astray. However, she quickly suppressed these thoughts and walked forward. Without these layers of golden tianlei, there was only one last layer of golden tianlei in front of them. She focused her gaze and finally saw the scene in front of her. Then, she suddenly held her breath. In front of him, several golden tianlei formed a huge spherical cage. And at the very center of it all, a figure was bound by countless black chains. It was Yi Zhao. At this moment, his entire body was bound by chains. His body and the chains were stained with blood. He lowered his head slightly, and his messy hair covered most of his face. However, Chu Luyue could still see his extremely pale face and the corners of his lips that were still bleeding. Chu Luyue's pupils constricted. Her heart seemed to be tightly gripped by something. All the air in her chest was robbed, and she could barely breathe. She had never seen Yi Zhao in such a tragic state. "Grandpa Chief." A reddish gold light suddenly flashed. Dumpling had already flown out and was about to charge in without thinking. Crash! The moment Dumpling appeared, the chains in the golden cage seemed to have sensed something and shook violently. Dumpling! Chu Liyue's mind was instantly alarmed. She quickly grabbed Dumpling back and hugged her tightly. An indescribable sense of danger surged in from all directions. Chu Liyue's heart suddenly hung in her throat. At this moment, the bound Yi Zhao finally moved. He slowly raised his head, and his pair of weathered eyes were suffused with a trace of scarlet. His blurry vision gradually became clear. Two familiar faces came into view. Immediately, Yi Zhao's expression changed abruptly. "Why are they here? Hurry! Hurry up and leave." He spoke with difficulty. His voice was hoarse and harsh. These few simple words caused him to spit out another mouthful of blood. Crash! The black chains around him shook even more violently. "Grandpa Chief!" Dumpling's tears flowed out instantly. Large drops of hot tears fell onto the back of Chu Liyue's hand, causing her heart to tremble. At this moment, an unfamiliar and tyrannical aura suddenly came from afar. Who dares to invade the forbidden lightning pool? A deep, cold, and oppressive voice came from afar. Chu Luyue knew something was wrong. She immediately called Dumpling back and turned to leave. However, she hadn't run far when she felt her waist being hooked by something. She looked down and saw that it was an extremely sharp crimson sickle. If she had not summoned her divine body earlier, she would have been cut in half at the waist. Her figure moved, and like a nimble fish, she quickly broke away from him. However, the surrounding space was quickly solidifying. Trying to escape. Where can you escape to? In the blink of an eye, that person was already close to her. Chu Liyue's mind raced. At this moment, she could not escape. She might as well face the attack head-on. She simply turned around and looked at the person who had come. It was a burly young man. He held a sickle in his hand and wore blue and black armor. Countless silver tianlei extended from his body. He was very impressive. While Chu Luyue was sizing him up, that person was also sizing her up. When he saw Chu Liyue's face clearly, he frowned. "Newcomer. Who gave you the courage to come here?" Chu Luyue almost immediately guessed the other party's identity. "You are the fourth oracle?" she asked tentatively. Mu Dongyu narrowed his eyes. "That's right. I am the fourth oracle, Mu Dongyu." Who are you? He had seen everyone in the Illusion God Palace, but this face was very unfamiliar to him. After thinking for a while, he knew that this person should be a newcomer to the Illusion God Palace. Chu Luyue knew it, but her expression was especially polite and respectful. Shangguan Yu greets the fourth oracle. Today's visit was purely a coincidence. I have no intention of offending you. Please forgive me. You are Shangguan Yu. Mu Dongyu's expression changed slightly when he heard this. Chu Liyue's brows twitched slightly. Fourth oracle, you know me. Mu Dongyu laughed. I can't say that I know you, but you have been very famous in the Illusion God Palace recently. His tone was emotionless, and Chu Liyue wasn't sure if he was praising or insulting her. But the most important thing now was to leave this place as soon as possible. I really didn't come here today for any other purpose, swish. Before she could finish, she heard the sound of something breaking through the air. A cold light flashed in Chu Liyue's eyes, but she didn't move in the end. Chi! That sharp sickle was placed on her neck. Chu Liyue's blood seemed to have frozen at this moment. Mu Dongyu's eyes were cold as she said word by word. What did you just see? Chapter 22-24. There was dead silence all around. After a moment, Chu Liyue heard her own voice. Golden Tianlei. Mu Dongyu's scythe was even closer to her, as if it would cut her in the next moment. What else? He continued to ask. His gaze seemed to be tangible. When it landed on her body, it seemed to be sharper than his scythe. Those with weaker willpower wouldn't even dare to look him in the eye. Chu Liyue's eyes were fixed and her expression was magnanimous. Nothing else. Mu Dongyu stared at her, as if he was judging the credibility of her words. The two sides fell into a silent and almost suffocating confrontation. After an unknown period of time, Mu Dongyu finally retracted his scythe. Chi! You don't want to know the consequences of lying to me. His cold tone still carried a warning and threat. But it was obvious that he believed Chu Liyue's words for the time being. This wasn't because he believed in Chu Liyue, but because he believed in the defense of the forbidden lightning pool. Under the layers of barriers, ordinary people couldn't get close at all, let alone others. Thank you, fourth divine envoy. Chu Liyue heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, just now, she had sensed that something was wrong and immediately grabbed Dumpling to run. At that time, the surrounding golden Tianlei had also quickly returned to its original state. When Mu Dongyu arrived, she saw that Chu Liyue was still some distance away from the golden Tianlei. If not for this, Chu Liyue knew that it would be extremely difficult for her to escape. She turned her gaze slightly and quickly glanced at the golden Tianlei that had returned to its original position. The glow was rippling, shining brightly, and the pressure was clear. If it wasn't for the faint pain in her lower back, she would have thought that everything just now was just a dream. She lowered her eyes, hiding the emotions in them. I didn't know this was the forbidden lightning pool. I offended you for a moment. I hope the fourth divine envoy will forgive me. I will leave quickly. As Chu Liyue spoke, she was about to leave. Wait. Mu Dongyu suddenly spoke. Chu Liyue paused and slowly turned around. Fourth oracle, is there anything else? Mu Dongyu stared at her for a while. Your divine body came from the God-destroying tribulation. There was no way he would mistake the brilliant light that flashed across her body. Chu Liyue nodded. No wonder. Mu Dongyu murmured in relief. Even though it's a grave crime for you to trespass on the forbidden grounds, I'll let you off this time on account that you're a newcomer. In addition, being able to come here alone is sufficient to show your talent. Mu Dongyu was responsible for guarding this place all year round, but this was the first time that a god had broken into this place. Hence, he admired Chu Luiyue quite a bit. Chu Luiyue did not expect him to say this and was stunned for a moment. Mu Dongyu's eyes swept over the tongue on her waist, and a hint of regret appeared in her eyes. What a pity, Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat. She had to admit that she was getting tired of hearing those two words recently. Unfortunately, she could not say anything now. However, when the golden Tianlei flew over to attack her, the space between her eyebrows was boiling hot. This situation had happened more than once, but Chu Luiyue herself did not know what was going on. She could not even control when it appeared and when it disappeared. The corners of her lips curled up and she said, "Things like bloodline totems are destined. Instead of wasting time on them, I might as well use the time to do other meaningful things." You've thought it through. Mu Dongyu chuckled. At first, he did not take Chu Luiyue to heart, but after hearing what she said, he felt that this girl's character was very open-minded, which was quite rare. Alright, you can go back. If you want to cultivate in the future, just do it in the area outside. Don't come here again. Mu Dongyu shook her head. There won't be a next time. Yes. Chu Luiyue nodded and left. After her figure disappeared into the distance, Mu Dongyu turned back to look. In the lightning pool, the golden Tianlei was silent. He stared at it for a long time. Shijing quickly found the courtyard where Cin-Yi and the others lived. He had just arrived at the door when the door opened from the inside. Cin-Yi was standing at the door. Shijing immediately grinned. "Big brother." Cin-Yi nodded. "You came quickly." As he spoke, he walked in. Mitsui followed him and said with a smile, "After I received Big Brother's news, I immediately rushed over here without stopping to rest. Fortunately, I'm not too late." As he spoke, he looked around the courtyard. "Where's Master? Isn't he here?" "Master is in the lightning pool and hasn't returned yet," Cin-Yi said. "Lightning pool?" Shijing looked in a certain direction. "Over there." Although it was quite a distance away, the vigorous power of the Tianlei was still very easy to distinguish. Cin-Yi nodded. "You can go take a look if you have time. It's a good place." "Oh, okay." Shijing didn't think too much about it. In any case, Big Brother was right. At this moment, Hua Shuangshuang also walked out of the room. "Fourth brother, you're here. You've already become a venerable god." Hua Shuangshuang was stunned. "Haven't you always been in Tianling? How did you break through so quickly?" He was still a venerable god. Shijing laughed. "Second brother, it's not that I'm too fast, it's that you're too slow. Although Tianling is outside the Divine Ruins world, there are still a few places that are very suitable for cultivation. I returned to Dahuang Swamp a few times and stayed there for a while. After that, I went to the Divine Ruins world and broke through." Dahuang Swamp. "Yes, I went to Mirror Lake. I wanted to go to Red Moon Desert to take a look, but that place was already sealed. Ordinary people couldn't enter at all, so I didn't go." Hua Shuangshuang nodded. She knew that Shijing had been staying in the Mystic Forest with Cin-Yi a few years ago. But later, the Mystic Forest was destroyed, and Master brought Dumpling back, so they never went there again. In the 13 Yu Guard, there were probably not many people who knew Dahuang Swamp better than the two of them. It was normal that he would go back. Shijing looked at Cin-Yi. "Big brother, why did you ask me to come here in such a hurry?" Chang Wanzhou came to a courtyard. This was Liang He's residence. He knocked on the door. Knock knock. Liang He quickly walked out of the room. "Who is it?" He came to the courtyard and saw Chang Wanzhou standing outside. He hesitated. These are your things." I'm returning them. Chang Wanzhou took out all the herbs and placed them at the door. Then, he was about to leave. Liang He was dumbfounded and hurriedly shouted, "Wait!" Chang Wanzhou paused and turned around. There was no expression on his exquisite and cold face. Is there anything else? Liang He was stared at by those clear and cold eyes. For a moment, he didn't know what to say. After hesitating for a moment, he asked. This is Little Hachi's idea. Chang Wanzhou narrowed his eyes. She's master's woman. You're not worthy of her. Chapter 22-25. His tone was very calm. But it was also because of this that it was so blunt, harsh, and even embarrassing. Liang He's expression changed slightly. He was the youngest supreme doctor in the Illusion God Palace, and his future was limitless. Even the eighth divine emissary, Shu Jing, had to be polite to him. Although he wasn't very noble, he was definitely in the upper middle class. But now, he was being said to be climbing the social ladder. He couldn't accept this no matter what. Young master, please be more polite with your words. I'm in love with little Hachi, and I'm sincerely pursuing her. But, no matter how bad it is, between us, you can't say that I'm climbing the social ladder, right? Liang He's expression was somewhat cold. Of course, he knew who this young man was talking about. In the past few days, Shang Guanyu's name had spread far and wide. Although she didn't complete the star path, she easily broke Mu Yafeng's record. Just this point alone was enough for everyone in the Illusion God Palace to remember her. Under normal circumstances, with her extraordinary talent and potential, it was enough to make many people scramble to befriend her. But, she didn't have a bloodline totem. Just this point alone was enough to erase everything about her. And, it wasn't just her. The people who came with her were all like this. Even little Hachi wasn't an exception. It was only because he liked little Eight that he had always been polite to them. But he didn't expect that in the end, the other party would say such words. Chang Wanzhou's face was still expressionless, as if he didn't hear Liang He's words at all. Are you done? Liang He was startled. Chang Wanzhou turned and left. Liang He suddenly felt his chest tighten. The other party's nonchalant attitude really made him very uncomfortable in his heart. He looked at the herbs piled up at the door, and his mood became even more gloomy. After thinking for a while, he finally couldn't help but step forward and say in a low voice, "There are some words that you might not like to hear, so I haven't said them. But now, I have to say them out loud. None of you have a bloodline totem. You won't even last a month in the illusory God Palace. Even if he could rely on some means to stay for a while longer, the final result would be the same. However, if little Hachi is willing to be with me, at the very least, I can keep her here." Chang Wanzhou stopped in his tracks. She hasn't fallen to such a state yet. After he finished speaking, he paid no further attention to Liang He and directly left. Liang He furrowed his brows, and something seemed to be surging in his heart. Unreasonable. Could it be that these people are still living in a dream? Did he really think that he could stay here with his little talent and strength? Plop. Chu Luiyue rushed out from the lightning pool. She glanced back. She was already quite a distance away from that place, and she could barely see that patch of gold. However, the scene just now was still vivid in his mind. Although it was risky, they finally confirmed that Yi Zhao was there. I'll just come back when I have the chance. She suppressed the thoughts in her heart and turned to walk towards the shore. Chu Liuyue's reappearance caused an uproar among the people on the shore. That's Shang Guanyu. It's really her. She's still alive. Qing Pei, who was waiting for news of Chu Liuyue's death, noticed the commotion and immediately looked over. When he saw that familiar face, his heart sank. She's been down there for so long, but she's still alive. Why is this Shangguan Yu so tough? Digression. Wow, I've seen so many deduced endings, and I have to admit that some of them are really interesting. Hehehe. Come back at 6. Chapter 22-26. However, Song Qing and the others were more concerned about something else. That's not right. She was almost at the deepest part of the lightning pool. Logically speaking, she shouldn't have survived. Why did she come out unscathed? To them, that was a place that they couldn't get close to. However, not only did Chu Luiyue go there easily, but she even stayed there for a long time. She only came back leisurely when everyone thought that she had died in the lightning pool. They were both gods, but wasn't the gap between them a little too great? Chu Luiyue stared at everyone's shocked gazes as she went ashore. Everyone's gaze was focused on her face and body. Her face was beautiful, and her color was just right. Her figure was slender, and she was exquisite. Not only was there no trace of blood on her body, but there wasn't even a wrinkle on her clothes. Those who didn't know would think that she had just gone out to have fun. The way everyone looked at her became more and more strange. This Shangguan Yu. Was there really something wrong with her? Why is everyone looking at me? Chu Luiyue stood still and looked up with a smile. Her tone was relaxed, and her lips were full of smiles. Everyone fell silent. After a moment, the first to speak was Qing Pei. Shangguan Yu, you just went to the deepest part of the lightning pool. He frowned and asked in disbelief. Chu Luiyue nodded casually. Yes, I went there for a walk, but there didn't seem to be anything interesting, so I came back. What's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong with you asking yourself? Everyone was in a mess. They were still at the edge of the lightning pool. It was very difficult for them to take another step in. She went straight to the deepest part of the lightning pool, and in the end, she said that it was boring. Have you ever considered their feelings? Qing Pei was so angry that he couldn't speak. His face was red and white. He also wanted to say a few words to refute Chu Luiyue, but everyone saw clearly that Chu Luiyue went there and came back unscathed. What else could they say? Previously, he had imagined that she would die inside, but now, not only did she not die, she seemed to have devoured a lot of Tianlei's power. The aura on her body was clearly much stronger than before. Qing Pei was upset and his chest felt suffocated. With great difficulty, he managed to squeeze out a sentence. Looks like I've really underestimated you. It's not too late to realize this. Chu Luiyue interrupted him with a smile. Then, he revealed a look of surprise. That's right, didn't Senior Qing Pei say that he wanted to enter the lightning pool to temper his divine body? Why didn't you go? Poochie. Someone at the side suddenly laughed out loud. Qing Pei's expression turned even uglier. Chu Luiyue blinked, then suddenly understood. Oh. So Senior Qing Pei has already been there and came out again. How? How long has it been? Based on this speed, how long will it take for you to completely temper your divine body? Qing Pei was furious. He flung his sleeves. You don't have to worry about this. After all, you don't even know how long you can stay here. So what if he's slow? It's better than her coming here without any hope. Chu Luiyue nodded sincerely. Then, I wish you all the best. I also hope that before I leave this place, I can see that you have made some obvious progress. Oh, right, there's one more thing. Chu Luiyue took a step forward and suddenly turned back. I forgot to remind everyone that the fourth divine envoy is guarding the center of the lightning pool. Don't go near it. Everyone was shocked. Song Qin asked, "You saw the fourth divine envoy there?" Chu Luyue nodded. "The fourth divine envoy was magnanimous and let me go this time. However, it's hard to say if someone else dares to barge in again. That's all I have to say. Everyone, please be careful." Many people looked at each other in silence. What was the use of knowing this? They wouldn't be able to reach that place. If she hadn't said that she was also warned by the fourth divine envoy, everyone would have thought that she was showing off. Chu Luyue didn't care about how they were going to leave. He straightened his collar and left. After leaving the lightning pool, the smile on Chu Luyue's face gradually disappeared. A hint of graveness colored the corners of his eyes. Although he already knew Yi Zhao's whereabouts, it was still very troublesome to save him. Not to mention the fourth divine envoy guarding outside, just the countless golden tianlei and black chains formed a cage that was difficult to break free from. He didn't need to think to know that once there was any movement, it would definitely be noticed. And this was the Illusion God Palace. She and Dumpling were restricted everywhere. It would be even harder to bring them out. "Dumpling, Dumpling." Chu Luyue called Dumpling a few times in his heart. After a while, Dumpling's sobbing voice could be heard. "Ah, are we unable to save Grandpa Patriarch?" She had always been by Chu Luyue's side. She had seen all the dangers and difficulties they had encountered along the way. Even if Chu Luyue didn't say it, she knew how difficult it would be. Chu Luyue sighed and softened his voice. "Dumpling, don't worry. Although they have locked up Senior Yi Zhao, they don't seem to have any intention of taking his life. We still have time and a chance." Yi Zhao's situation was very bad. He was already on the verge of death. But it was also because of this that Chu Luyue could conclude that the other party didn't really want to take Yi Zhao's life. At least, they didn't want to. Otherwise, Yi Zhao wouldn't have been able to live until now. After hearing Chu Luyue's words, Dumpling was relieved and asked softly. Then what should we do?" That divine envoy looked so fierce. Other than the fourth divine envoy, where are the other divine envoys? And, where is the person who captured Yi Zhao? Chu Luyue paused for a moment and said softly but firmly. "There must be a way." She quickly returned to her residence. As soon as she arrived at the door, she felt a rather familiar aura inside. She was slightly stunned. The next moment, she saw Mitsui's figure suddenly appear. "Master! You're back." Chu Liyue's eyes lit up. "Mitsui, why are you here?" Mitsui chuckled. "I heard from Big Brother that you're all here. I thought that the matter at Tianling was almost settled, so I came over." Chu Luyue walked over and looked at him carefully. "You've already broken through to God Venerable?" This cultivation speed was really fast. Mitsui simply repeated the reason why he and Hua Shuangshuang had met before. Only then did Chu Luyue feel relieved. Mitsui's talent was indeed extremely outstanding, and his temperament was extremely stable on the path of cultivation. It wasn't too surprising that he could reach where he was today. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Chu Luyue looked back curiously. Who would be here at this time? "I'll open the door." As Shijing spoke, he strode over with large strides. Creak, a familiar face appeared in front of him. Chu Luyue was stunned. "Miss Mu." Chapter 22-27. It was Mu Yafeng standing outside the door. Shijing turned around and asked. "Master, do you know her?" Chu Luyue nodded. "Miss Mu, what's the matter?" Mu Yafeng looked past Shijing and at Chu Luyue. "I do have something to discuss with Miss Shengwan." Chu Luyue smiled. "Ms. Mu, if there's anything, just say it." Mu Yafeng, however, looked a little troubled. I wonder if Miss Shangwan can talk to me in private. Chu Luiyue understood. It seemed that it was not an ordinary matter. Well, Miss Mu couldn't come here in person for an ordinary matter. Miss Mu, please come in. Mu Yafeng followed Chu Luiyue into her room. After both sides sat down, Chu Luiyue went straight to the point. There's no one else here now. Miss Mu, you can speak. Mu Yafeng crossed her hands and seemed to hesitate. After a moment, she finally spoke. Actually, I'm here this time to make a deal with Miss Shangwan. Oh. Chu Luiyue raised her eyebrows slightly. I have a way to let Miss Shangwan and the others stay in the illusory god palace. If you need anything in the future, I'll try my best to find it for you. Mu Yafeng said word by word. She thought that Chu Luiyue would be surprised and excited to hear this. However, contrary to her expectations, the woman opposite her had a faint smile on her face, and her expression didn't change at all. After she finished speaking, Chu Luiyue asked unhurriedly. What do you want, Miss Mu? Mu Yafeng's conditions were undoubtedly very generous. For people without bloodline totems, this was undoubtedly the greatest temptation. Mu Yafeng dared to offer such conditions, which could only mean that she wanted a lot. Mu Yafeng bit her lip. For a moment, she felt that all her thoughts had been seen through by Chu Luiyue. This feeling made her very uncomfortable. It shouldn't be like this. Could it be that she didn't care at all if she could stay in the illusory god palace? Even if she didn't care, what about her subordinates? Did they not care at all? Chu Luiyue's nonchalant attitude instantly gave Mu Yafeng the illusion that the conditions he offered couldn't move the other party at all. This woman's thoughts were extremely deep. With that thought in mind, Mu Yafeng took a deep breath and looked up at Chu Luiyue. Miss Shangwan is also a smart person, so I'll be frank, I want the mythical flame diagram. Now, Miss Shangwan has obtained the opportunity to copy the Xian formation diagrams of the precious treasure pavilion. The mythical flame diagram might be among them. If Miss Shangwan is willing to help, I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint Miss Mu. Chu Luiyue interrupted her. I can't help you with this. Mu Yafeng's face stiffened. Actually, she had no choice but to come here. The last part of the Xian formations on the star path were extremely complicated and difficult to comprehend. She went back and studied it for a long time, but she still didn't have a clue. A Xian formation was already so difficult for her. She really didn't know how long and how much effort it would take for the rest to comprehend. But she really didn't want to wait hopelessly anymore. More importantly, she realized that with her current strength, it was impossible to comprehend all of them in a short period of time. Even, she wasn't sure if she could really comprehend all the Xian formations. Now, many people in the illusory god palace were secretly discussing when she would be able to complete the star path. If they knew that she didn't have the confidence and ability, then, at that time, there would be countless people waiting to see her make a fool out of herself. So, after realizing this, she made up her mind to get the mythical flame diagram. With the annotations and pointers on it, these problems would definitely be solved. The precious treasure pavilion wouldn't be able to get through. They had always guarded these places very strictly. Moreover, for some reason, the second master, Shui, and the others were much colder to her than before. After thinking about it, she could only come to Chu Luiyue, hoping to get the mythical flame diagram from her. But she didn't expect that the moment she opened her mouth, she would be rejected before she could even finish speaking. Miss Shangwan, although I haven't been in the illusory god palace for long, I still know some rules. Chu Luiyue's red lips curled up, but her black jade-like eyes were cold. If I give you the mythical flame diagram, wouldn't that be equivalent to betraying the precious treasure pavilion? Although she wasn't a member of the precious treasure pavilion, from a certain point of view, they were in a cooperative relationship. Shui trusted her and directly gave it to her. If she turned around and made a deal with Mu Yafeng, Miss Shangwan, I know this is a bit difficult for you. But I really need it. How about this, you don't have to give me the whole thing, I only want a part of it. Not even half of it. Chu Luiyue stood up. If Miss Mu has no other business with me today, I won't keep you. Please, Mu Yafeng's face turned green. Was she asking her to leave? Her hands clenched tightly in her sleeves, and she suppressed the surging emotions in her heart and asked, Miss Shangwan, if you don't say anything and I don't say anything, no one will know. Anyway, you're going to copy the Xian formation, so what if you copy a few more for me? Moreover, using these to exchange for the right to stay in the illusory god palace forever is definitely not a loss for you, right? Chu Luiyue looked at the letter at her waist and sighed. To be honest, we're not even in a hurry about this, so I really don't know why each of you is so concerned about it. If you can stay, stay. If you can't, leave. Isn't this simple? Everyone is relying on their own abilities, so why go through so much trouble? Her main purpose of coming here was to find Dabao and the others and save them. As for the rest, she really didn't take it to heart. What's more, cheating is like being pregnant. If you have it, you have it. If you don't, you don't. How can you say that it's a little pregnant? Chu Luiyue's words made Mu Yafeng's face turn completely cold. So, you really don't want to help? It's not that I don't want to, it's that I can't. Chu Luiyue put her hands on the table, leaned forward, and looked at Mu Yafeng condescendingly. Miss Mu, you don't really think that if you rely on other methods to comprehend the remaining Xian formations, no one will be able to see it, right? Mu Yafeng's lips trembled slightly. What do you mean by that? Chu Luiyue's lips curved slightly. Nothing. I'm just reminding you that the seventh divine envoy is not a fool. Jin Yunlai must be very clear about Mu Yafeng's talent. If she really soared to the sky, how could he not guess what was going on? Mu Yafeng gritted her teeth. Are you saying that my talent is low? Chu Luiyue said honestly, it's not high anyway. Chapter 22-28. A fire suddenly rose from the bottom of Mu Yafeng's heart. She had been in the illusory god palace for many years and had always been the envy and admiration of everyone. When had anyone ever said that her aptitude was low? However, the person who said this was Chu Luiyue. No matter how much she didn't want to admit it, she knew that compared to her, she was slightly inferior. Therefore, even if she was filled with anger and unwillingness after hearing this, she had no right to refute. Mu Yafeng was so angry that she laughed. Yes. Compared to Miss Shangwan, that bit of talent of mine is indeed not worth mentioning. But, so what? Without a bloodline totem, you can't stay in the illusory god palace. Ascending to the heavens and becoming a god is even more unattainable. Miss Mu, you don't have to worry about this. Chu Luiyue's red lips curved, giving a gentle and sincere smile. At least for this period of time, I will still help Treasure Pavilion copy the Xian formations. As for the rest, I'll just take it one day at a time. Some things can't be forced, so why make things difficult for yourself? It's better to accept it. Mu Yafeng choked. On the other hand, Miss Mu, if you have the time and energy to be opportunistic, why don't you go back and study Xian formations more? Perhaps it will be more useful. Of course, if you really can't understand it, it only proves that the illusory god palace is also out of your reach. Chu Luiyue straightened up and raised her hand to send her off. Miss Mu, please. Mu Yafeng stood up with a bang, her eyes seemed to be burning with flames. Shengguanyu, you will regret today's choice. Chu Luiyue didn't seem to hear her threat and warning, smiling faintly. I just walked around the thunder pool and am a little tired, so I won't see you out. Mu Yafeng was speechless. She gritted her teeth and turned to leave. Shi Jing was standing in the courtyard and was a little confused when he saw Mu Yafeng leave with an ashen face. What's wrong with this Miss Mu? Wasn't she very polite when she came just now? Why did she change her attitude in the blink of an eye? Chu Luiyue said, in the future, there's no need to open the door when she comes. Shi Jing hurriedly responded, yes. Chu Luiyue's brows raised. However, it was also very likely that he would not come again. She looked around. Where is Xiao Zhou? She hadn't seen anyone since she came back. Based on his character, he didn't seem like someone who would go out casually. As soon as he finished speaking, a familiar figure appeared outside the door. It was Chang Wanzhou. He lowered his head slightly and seemed to be distracted. Little boat. Chu Luiyue raised his voice. Chang Wanzhou came back to his senses and looked up. Chu Luiyue saw that he was somewhat absent-minded and felt a little strange. Where have you been? Chang Wanzhou paused. I felt a little bored, so I went out for a walk. Chu Luiyue thought about it and agreed. Ever since they came here, they really didn't go out much. You always said that you had a headache. Is it better now? Chang Wanzhou nodded. Much better. Chu Luiyue smiled. That's good. We don't know how long we will stay here. You don't have to think too much. Just do your own things. Chang Wanzhou nodded and entered the house again. He took a cloth and began to clean the place. Chu Luiyue wanted to say that this place was quite clean and that there was no need to clean it. However, she felt that Chang Wanzhou seemed to be a little uneasy, so she didn't say that. He had his own way of handling things. Chu Luiyue thought for a moment and shouted to the other room, Cini, come here for a moment. Cini quickly came over. Master, why did you call me here? Chu Luiyue raised her hand and set up a barrier to block out the sound to ensure that their conversation would not be heard by the people outside. Then, she came in front of Cini and said, Cini, I want to enter the lightning pool to save someone. Cini's long and indifferent eyes narrowed slightly. After a moment, he asked, previously, Master went there for this matter. Chu Luiyue wasn't surprised that he guessed it. She nodded slightly. Senior Yi Zhao is trapped in the depths of the lightning pool and is strictly guarded by the fourth divine envoy. It will be extremely difficult to save him. Do you have any ideas? Cin Yi was silent for a long while. With clan leader Yi Zhao's strength, the person who can bring him here and imprison him definitely can't be underestimated. Moreover, the relevant defenses must be extremely complicated. It won't be easy to save him silently and without attracting anyone's attention. Chu Luiyue sighed. I know. It's just that. However, she really couldn't just stand by and watch it happen. Yi Zhao had a cold and arrogant personality. Back then, he even threatened her to break the contract with Dumpling. However, to be fair, he was indeed very good to Dumpling. And later, he even began to love her because of her. For the sake of Tuanzi, he helped her a lot. She had always remembered this kindness in her heart. Now that the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan was in trouble, Yi Zhao must have paid a huge price to protect the many clansmen of the Phoenix God Mountain. As for himself, he had been reduced to such a state. No matter how she looked at it, she couldn't just stand by and do nothing. So you don't have any ideas? Cin Yi shook his head. There is a way, but it's a little troublesome. Chu Luiyue's eyes lit up. What is it? Let me hear it first. As long as there was a way, she had to try it first before knowing whether it would work or not. Cin Yi's brows twitched. There is a way to break any mechanism. It's just that the degree of difficulty is different. The crux of this matter is that once clan leader Yi Zhao escapes, he will definitely be noticed. Chu Luiyue frowned. This was what gave her the biggest headache. That's right. Previously, I only got a little closer and glanced at Senior Yi Zhao, and it attracted the fourth divine envoy. Xin Yi said, actually, it's not difficult to solve this problem. We just need to find a substitute and steal the day in the chaos. A white light suddenly flashed across Chu Liyue's mind. You mean, as long as the fake is real enough, this plan will work? Chu Liyue instantly understood Xin Yi's meaning. First, they would muddy the waters, then take advantage of the chaos to rescue people and replace them with a fake. As long as they could fool those people, nothing would be discovered. This was indeed a method. But it was extremely difficult to implement. Where can I find a substitute for Senior Yi Zhao? He is the clan leader of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. Chu Liyue fell into deep thought, her brows tightly knitted. The aura of every member of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan was unique and irreplaceable. Not to mention the clan leader Yi Zhao. How could anyone in this world be able to impersonate him? Actually, the problem of appearance is very easy to solve. The key is aura. Xin Yi. The main reason why clan leader Yi Zhao is special is that he is the only person in the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan who has opened the 7th meridian. If we can separate a portion of his qi and blood from his body, we can pass off the fake as the real one. Chu Liyue rubbed her temples and sighed. I'm afraid that won't work. He's locked up there and can't get close at all, let alone other things. Xin Yi looked at her quietly. There's a second method, find another Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix who has opened the 7th meridian. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.